The story begins deep inside a crystalline dungeon. After a grueling journey, our MC Kuga and his party finally reach the final area. One of his teammates breaks the silence, noting how far they have traveled together. Kuga is caught off guard by the sudden change in mood. He reminds them that the greatest challenge is still ahead of them. But the atmosphere turns heavy as the group stops in their tracks. Sarah calls out his name, signaling that something is wrong. Sarah looks him in the eye and thanks him for all the help he has provided so far. But there is a massive catch coming. They finally says it out loud. Sarah tells him it is time for them to part ways. They are abandoning him at the very end of the road. Kuga is completely stunned by the betrayal. He cannot process why his friends would turn their backs on him like this. Kuga can hardly believe his ears. He asks if they are really going through with this. If this is the end, he needs to know why. He asks for a reason behind this sudden betrayal. They have been together since they were students. Years of friendship are being erased in a single moment. Sarah finally breaks the silence to explain. They says the reason is actually very simple. To the rest of the party, Kuga is just a jack of all trades. He is a master of nothing, and they need specialists for the road ahead. So basically our MC is shit to them. She'll settle for a nice guy until she finds a rich one and then she gonna dump you. They asks if the message is clear. His hard work and versatility are exactly why he is no longer welcome. Sarah doubles down, claiming that cutting him loose is the best choice for everyone involved. Kuga can only stare back in silence as the weight of the betrayal finally sinks in. Then, they drops the final blow. Since he is no longer part of the team, he has to face the hidden room entirely on his own. Sarah calls this deadly trial a farewell gift, leaving him behind as they turn their backs on him. Sarah looks down at him with cold eyes, showing no sign of regret for discarding his oldest friend. Kuga finally accepts the reality. After years of loyalty, he realizes his journey with them is over. Kuga accepts that his life as a dungeon explorer is finally over. He has nothing left to say to the people who abandoned him. Behind him, Makari speaks up, trying to address the party leader. She can feel the tension in the air. She questions the decision, calling it way too extreme. Even after everything, she still feels a bit of guilt about leaving him behind. Sarah shuts her down immediately, saying this is the only way forward. He is even willing to use force if Kuga refuses to go quietly. Kuga starts to walk toward his fate as Sarah acknowledges the comment. His mind is made up, and there is no room for mercy. The rest of the party watches him go in silence. The girls know there is no turning back from this betrayal. Sarah refuses to even look him in the eye. To him, he is already a memory. Kuga stands before the massive entrance to the hidden room. He asks if this suicide mission is really their way of saying goodbye. He reaches out and prepares to enter. This is the point of no return. Kuga accepts the gift. If his friends want him to face death alone, he will do exactly that. He steps into the blinding light of the final chamber. The world he knew is gone forever. A giant eye looms over the crystalline room. Standing in the center is the beautiful vampire, the boss who has killed everyone before him. The vampire stares down at the intruder, her eyes catching on something unexpected. She asks what the strange object is, momentarily distracted from the fight. She looks at Kuga and realizes he is standing there alone. She mocks him, asking if he really plans on facing a boss like her without any help. To understand how things got this bad, you have to look back 50 years. That was when massive dungeons suddenly began appearing all over the earth. Along with these dungeons came proof that magic and monsters were real. This discovery created entirely new professions for people brave enough to enter. The biggest game changer was revival magic. It spread across the world like wildfire because it allowed people to cheat death, even if it only worked once. Because death was no longer permanent, dungeon exploration and streaming became the most popular thing on the planet. Everyone wanted to watch explorers risk it all for fame. Not. But among all the dungeons, one stands above the rest. It is the legendary hidden room of no return. You might wonder how it earned such a dark reputation. The truth is much worse than the rumors. Throughout history, not a single explorer has ever successfully cleared this floor. Anyone who steps past this point is effectively ending their career. Once you enter, there is no coming back. Every challenger who tried to fight used up their one-time resurrection magic. Because they can only cheat death once, they were too broken to ever enter a dungeon again. And this is the beautiful vampire, the monster responsible for all those failed runs. She looks at Kuga and asks what he is doing there alone. The monster of the room leans in. She asks if Kuga really plans on fighting a legendary boss like her without a single ally. She looks him over, curious about why an explorer would enter her chamber alone. The beautiful vampire sees right through him. She asks if he was abandoned by the people he trusted. Kuga admits the truth. His former party treated him like trash, and now he has nowhere else to go. The boss finds the situation hilarious. To her, it is obvious why a jack of all trades like him was left behind. But just as the tension peaks, something catches her eye. She hears a faint buzzing sound coming from a strange object in the air. Despite the strange buzzing sound in the air, the vampire boss stays focused on Kuga. She notices how weirdly calm he is after being left to die. Kuga does not even flinch. He tells her that he expected this betrayal to happen sooner or later. He looks at his situation with a cold sense of peace. For him, being abandoned by his toxic party might actually be for the best. The monster pauses, weighing his words. Most people scream or beg for mercy, but Kuga is different from any explorer she has ever met. A playful smile creeps across her face. She decides to drop the hostile act, simply glad that he decided to show up at all. Kuga is left speechless by her sudden change in tone. He came here expecting a brutal fight, not a welcoming committee. Kuga asks why she is being so friendly, but she just smirks. She turns the question back on him with a playful glint in her eyes. She leans in, her expression turning wild. She tells him the truth is actually quite simple. Suddenly, the room explodes with power as she admits she was just bored. Being a legendary boss gets lonely after a few centuries. Kuga grips his sword, his body tensing up. Even if she is just playing, her raw strength is enough to crush him instantly. He narrows his eyes and focuses on his blade. He cannot afford to let his guard down for even a second. Energy surges through the floor, surrounding him in a deadly trap. Kuga stands firm, ready to show this boss what a hero can really do. Standing firm is easier said than done. Kuga feels the air grow heavy as the legendary boss finally decides to get serious. Before he can even swing his blade, she vanishes. She reappears inches from his face, whispering that he is being a bit too rough with his sword. He swings around in a panic, just barely managing to catch her next blow. The clash sends a massive shockwave through his entire frame. The vampire boss floats back with a playful look. She seems genuinely surprised that he is still breathing after that exchange. It finally clicks for Kuga. She is not just fast, she is using a high-level teleportation skill to toy with his perception. He grips his sword tighter, realizing he only survived because she chose to speak. For this boss, the fight is nothing more than a game. In that case, Kuga decides to stop being a target and starts his move. He narrows his focus, preparing to launch a full-scale offensive. With a heavy swing, he forces the legendary boss to actually move. The vampire grunts in surprise, struggling to find an opening as the pressure mounts. They lock eyes mid-combat, realizing this fight is far from over. He pours every ounce of energy into one strike, sending a massive shockwave through the room. The impact is enough to make even a legendary boss reel back. But Kuga is pushing his body way past its limits to maintain the pressure. His arm starts to give out under the strain, so he immediately triggers a recovery spell. In seconds, his wounds close up and he shifts right back into his combat stance. The vampire can hardly believe what she is seeing. She finally realizes that his class allows him to use high-level healing magic on top of everything else. The vampire boss leans in, eyeing him with a playful smirk. She asks if he is just some basic jack of all trades. Kuga does not even try to argue. He just gives her a tired, simple nod. But the phrase jack of all trades is actually a massive insult to his true power. Kuga was assigned the legendary hero job. He used to think the title meant he was special, but he was dead wrong. In reality, the job forced him to master every single category: swordsmanship, defense, offense, and even high-level healing. Here comes the OPMC stats. A notification displays his true stats. He is not just a generalist. He is a max-level master of every single category at once. He is the ultimate outlier. While most people with similar stats struggle to reach their full potential, they usually fail to master even a single skill. This means a normal generalist always falls short when compared to a true specialist. In a world of pros, being just okay at everything is usually a death sentence. This harsh reality is all due to the unique effects of the dungeon barrier. It creates a set of rules that every explorer has to follow if they want to survive. The biggest restriction is the head count. Because of the barrier, any party entering the area is limited to just 4 members. Since space is so tight, the best strategy is to form a team of specialists. The goal is to have 4 people who are the absolute best in 4 different categories. Every single slot has to count. A party needs to maximize their specific strengths to win, and to the rest of the world, Kuga just did not fit the math. The team was built around pure specialization. First you have Sarah the Sword Saint, who focuses entirely on raw physical damage. Then there is Yulia the Saintess. Her entire build is dedicated to dealing high-level magic attacks. Even the third member Makari has a clear purpose. She is the team backbone and handles all the essential support buffs. But when it came to finding a dedicated healer to round out the squad, the party had absolutely no one. To keep the group alive, Kuga had to suppress his potential and take on the role of the healer by default. However, standing alone against this legendary vampire boss changed his entire perspective. For the first time, he could finally stop holding back. This intensity awakened a side of him he never knew existed. It was a pure sense of freedom. He finally stopped worrying about keeping a toxic party alive. "Ya bro, good for you. Inhale the good shit, exhale the toxic shit." Suddenly, the vampire paused her attack. She looked at him with a strange expression and called out. She admitted that something had been on her mind for a while. The killing intent was gone, replaced by curiosity. She pointed toward a small object hovering nearby. She demanded to know what that strange floating thing was. Kuga followed her gaze and realized she was focused on his gear. He simply explained that it was a streaming drone. The vampire boss looked at the floating drone with total suspicion. She asked if streaming was some kind of betrayal against her. Kuga quickly realized there was a massive cultural gap between them. He stood there in a daze. He could hardly believe he was actually about to give a lecture on modern technology to a legendary dungeon monster. Kuga started his explanation. He told her that the drone captures video footage that is broadcast for the entire world to see. He pointed out the interactive part of the system. This allowed viewers from all over the globe to leave their own comments in real time. The killing intent in the room completely vanished. The vampire stopped her lethal assault entirely just to listen to Kuga speak about his gear. She leaned in with literal stars in her eyes. The boss of the hidden room was no longer interested in a fight because she was now obsessed with the idea of being a star. She realized the full potential of the camera. If they fought right now, the entire world would be watching her every move. Kuga confirmed her suspicions. The drone was actually a parting gift from the teammates who had just thrown him away. It was the only item he still carried after they abandoned him in the dungeon to face his death alone. The vampire felt a sudden wave of pity. To her, leaving a comrade behind like that felt incredibly cold. Kuga simply thanked her for the sympathy. It was a strange reality where a dungeon boss showed him more kindness than his own human friends. But the quiet moment did not last long. Kuga noticed a shift in her energy as she prepared to say something else. She dropped her guard completely, admitting that Kuga was the first person to ever treat her with such kindness and patience. Then her eyes began to sparkle with excitement as she demanded to know what the people in the chat were saying about her. Kuga pulled up the streaming interface, looking through the screen to see how the audience was reacting to their interaction. He started scrolling through the endless wall of text to find a comment that captured the general mood of the viewers. Without any hesitation, Kuga read a specific message out loud that called the legendary vampire boss cute. The vampire froze in place, her mind completely short-circuiting as she tried to process the fact that thousands of humans actually found her adorable. She stares at the screen and realizes it is not just one person. Every single comment in the feed is some variation of the word cute. Kuga stands over her shoulder and confirms the situation. He points out that the vast majority of the global audience is fixated on her looks. The vampire covers her face in a desperate attempt to hide her blush. She calls the humans insolent for daring to speak to a legendary monster that way. She looks up with a look of pure confusion. She asks Kuga if every human on the planet behaves with this level of boldness. Kuga is surprised she considers the praise an insult. He realizes they have very different definitions of what it means to be disrespectful. He tells her that the viewers are likely just being honest about what they see. The vampire repeats the word, trying to understand the idea of her own charm. Kuga called out to her, noticing the shift in her energy. She was fidgeting, clearly struggling to find the right words. She looked up at him with a look of hesitation. She asked if he would mind if she said something a little weird. Kuga was confused by the sudden change in the atmosphere. He waited for her to continue, not knowing what to expect from a dungeon boss. She did not hold back any longer. She looked him straight in the eyes and asked if he could teach her how to stream. Kuga was completely blindsided. He stammered, asking what she could possibly mean by such a bizarre request. The vampire did not blink or look away. She stood her ground, confirming that she meant exactly what she just said. She finally spoke her truth. She had officially become interested in the world of streaming. She looked him in the eyes and asked for a major favor. She wanted Kuga to teach her everything there was to know about being a creator. Kuga was completely stunned. He understood her request, but the logic behind it made absolutely no sense to him. He asked the most obvious question. He wondered how she could stream if she was stuck inside this room as a boss. She just smiled and said it would be easy. She explained her daily routine. She usually just slept until a notification told her an invader had entered the dungeon, and she gets ready, then teleported in a hurry. The vampire reveals that she was actually in the middle of a nap when he arrived. Being rudely woken up made her cranky, but she had to rush over like usual. Now that they have stopped fighting, she realizes this is her big break. She is finally free to leave the room she has been trapped in for years. She gets a wild idea and leans in close to Kuga. She suggests that instead of fighting, they should team up and start streaming together as a duo. In her excitement, she gets a little too close to his neck. She can smell his blood, and for a split second, her vampire instincts nearly take over. She quickly pulls back and denies having any hungry intentions. She insists that he is simply the perfect partner to help her start her new life as a star. Kuga wondered how his life had even reached this point. She went from wanting a teacher to demanding they become a duo in record time. This offer was more than just a job, it was a lifeline. To be honest, he had been struggling with a major problem lately. He had completely lost his sense of purpose. Years ago, his old party started exploring dungeons and streaming just for the fun of it. For years, Kuga felt like his only purpose was to fight. He was nothing more than a shield for a party that never truly valued him. He lacked the personality to be a star on camera. While his teammates soaked up the fame, he was always stuck in the background during their streams. By the time he was kicked out, he had completely lost interest in his career. He was ready for his journey to end right there. This total lack of hope is why he walked into a suicide mission. He accepted the trap from Sira because he had no reason to stay alive. He was consumed by a level of despair that made him welcome the end. But then, he met a strange vampire who gave him a brand new reason to keep going. The terrifying dungeon boss was gone. Now she was just a girl with a wild dream of becoming a star. Kuga knew this sounded completely insane. If anyone asked if he was in his right mind, he would have to say no. But after being treated like a disposable tool for years, this offer felt like something more. He looked her in the eyes and gave her a simple answer. He was in. For the first time since being banished, Kuga felt a spark of real purpose. He finally had a partner who actually wanted him around. The vampire was absolutely thrilled. Her long years of isolation were over, and her journey to the top of the streaming world was finally starting. What began as a typical story about betrayal and exile had evolved into something completely different. It was the birth of a brand new, never-before-seen duo that would change the world of streaming forever. Kuga is down to help with the stream, but he needs to know if she has an actual plan. He asks her if there is anything specific she wants to show the world. Instead of talking strategy, she starts with the basics. She looks him in the eye and introduces herself as Alicia. Kuga is curious about her background and asks who gave her that name. Alicia admits that she actually has no idea. To her, it was never a choice. She explains that she just knew her name was Alicia from the very second she became self-aware. Kuga takes a moment to process her strange answer. It is definitely unusual, but he decides to just roll with it. Since she shared her name, he decides to return the favor. He introduces himself as Kuga, a 24-year-old explorer. Alicia is actually impressed. She thinks Kuga is a pretty cool name, which catches him a bit off guard. He quickly moves past the compliment to get the conversation back on track. He needs to know her specific vision for the stream before they can start. Alicia began to explain her vision for the future. She admitted that having too much free time lately led her to a massive realization. Kuga waited for the punchline, wondering what kind of crazy idea she had cooked up. She asked what would happen if she stood at the very top, leaving Kuga completely confused. Her goal was simple. She wanted to become the legendary final boss that every explorer feared. Kuga was left speechless by her ambition, while Alicia looked proud of her new life goal. He finally asked for a real plan, curious how she actually intended to reach that level. According to her, the first step was evolving into a terrifying S-ranked monster. Alicia handed him a piece of paper to prove she was serious about her goal. She explained that these were the official requirements to reach SS rank status as a boss. The list was intense, requiring her to defeat over 30 invaders and even take down S-rank parties. Kuga looked over the document and took a moment to process the information. He was actually surprised by how detailed and professional the system requirements were. But one specific section of the list made him stop and think. He asked if hunting down dungeon explorers was really a necessary part of her evolution. Alicia confirmed his suspicion, admitting that she had to become a real threat to reach the top. Alicia went dead silent as the weight of her plan finally hit her. She sheepishly admitted she got too excited and did not think the whole thing through. She realized that since Kuga was an explorer, he would be forced to fight against his own kind. But Kuga stayed calm, telling her that he actually did not mind doing it at all. Alicia was caught off guard by his total lack of hesitation. Kuga decided to clarify the situation by sharing a cold hard fact about the world. He explained that there were absolutely no rules stopping explorers from turning on each other. This harsh reality was a complete shock to the aspiring boss. All dungeon explorers are forced to carry a specific auto-revival spell called Relive. Without this magic, they aren't even allowed to pass the entrance checkpoints. Relive is a special safety net. If an explorer actually dies, the spell instantly teleports their body outside and brings them back to life. There is a major catch, though. This miracle magic only works once in a lifetime. Once someone burns their revival, they are banned from the dungeons forever. Their career as an explorer is officially over. But since everyone is guaranteed to survive their first death, the rules are surprisingly loose. Explorers are given a high level of freedom to do whatever they want. That freedom includes fighting each other. Since nobody actually dies for good, the system looks the other way. Kuga explains that some streamers have even built entire careers out of this. They make Explorer versus Explorer combat their main source of content. Right now, there are 4 legendary S-rank parties at the top of the food chain. If Alicia wants to be the final boss, those are her targets. Kuga explains that the third most prominent group among those elites is called the Duelists. Alicia can hardly believe it, her excitement growing at the thought of such powerful rivals. However, she knows that reaching the absolute top requires more than just talk. To officially become an S-rank boss, she must defeat one of those legendary S-rank parties. Since only 4 of those groups exist in the world, her path forward is narrow and dangerous. Kuga confirms the reality of the situation while Alicia processes the scale of their mission. The vampire then turns her curiosity toward her new partner and asks about his own rank. Kuga admits he was once part of an A-ranked party, but that life is firmly behind him now. Alicia finally starts to piece together the complex hierarchy of the human world. She realizes that even with Kuga's strength, there are still legendary tiers far above him. Kuga confirms her suspicions as they stand together in the quiet of the hidden chamber. He then asks her about her own status, noting he has never seen her name on the official S-rank lists. Alicia gives a blunt answer, admitting she has no official rank at all. Kuga figures it is because she has been a hidden boss, completely cut off from the rest of the world. However, Alicia believes that starting from the very bottom will actually be more entertaining for their viewers. With a clear vision in mind, she prepares to reveal the true purpose of their brand new channel. Alicia is going all in on the idea. She wants to film her entire journey as a rankless monster and turn it into a full-on documentary. Her ultimate goal is to reach the absolute top and become the final boss. By doing this, she intends to bring back the fear humans have forgotten. She is determined to stop explorers from treating dungeons like a playground. To her, the way humans behave inside them is completely tasteless. The main target of her wrath is the very thing they are doing right now, dungeon streaming. Kuga can only offer a nervous agreement. Her ambition is massive, but it leaves him feeling a bit conflicted about the future. At that moment, he wonders what his actual role is in this grand plan. He is basically helping a monster destroy the industry he used to belong to. A few hours pass as the duo prepares for their very first broadcast. Finally, they go live. Alicia waves at the floating camera lens, asking the audience if they can see her clearly. The screen lights up and the chat immediately explodes. People are stunned to see a real vampire on their screens, already calling her cute and asking if this is actually real. Alicia can hardly contain her excitement as the messages pour in. She looks back at Kuga, ready to officially kick off their very first broadcast. Kuga watches the sidebar in complete disbelief. The first thing he notices is the massive flood of comments appearing in real time. For a debut stream, these numbers are absolutely insane. He realizes that their weird plan is catching on much faster than he ever imagined. Alicia is totally hyped as she looks over at her new partner. She asks Kuga if he can believe what a massive start they are having. Kuga gives a simple nod while trying to process the chaos. A dungeon monster becoming a streamer is completely unheard of, and the world is already paying attention. News of a banished hero teaming up with a legendary vampire spreads like wildfire across the internet. Everyone is talking about this impossible duo. Because of the massive hype, they are receiving an unexpected amount of eyes on their channel. Alicia leans back into the lens, ready to tell everyone exactly what her first mission is. Alicia drops a massive bombshell during their debut, announcing that their main content will be explorer hunting. She quickly realizes she might have said too much too soon. Instead of taking it back, she doubles down and confirms her intent to the world. Kuga can only watch as she fully commits to the villain role. The live chat section immediately grinds to a halt as the audience tries to process what they just heard. No one can tell if she is actually serious or just playing a character. The tension on screen becomes heavy enough to feel through the lens. This marks the official start of a new, terrifying era for dungeon streaming. Alicia signals for Kuga to stay quiet as she spots their first targets approaching from the shadows. A group of 4 adventurers enters the clearing, completely unaware that they are being watched. These are the invaders Alicia has been waiting for. Alicia watches them with a predatory grin, noting how they have walked into her trap without a second thought. Among the group, Kenzu takes a moment to celebrate. He is proud that they have finally made it this far into the dungeon. He thinks back to their days as simple high school clubmates. Seeing how far they have come as a team feels incredibly nostalgic. Akina follows closely behind him, her voice soft as she prepares to admit something she has kept hidden for a long time. She tells him that there was a very specific reason she decided to become an adventurer in the first place. Looking at Kenzu with a sincere smile, she confesses that her only dream was to be in the same party as him. Unfortunately, this touching moment is about to be their last. Kenzu is stunned by the confession, unable to grasp the weight of her words. Suddenly, the air is sliced open by a series of lethal strikes. 2 of their comrades are pierced through before they can even draw their weapons. The shock of the ambush leaves them frozen. This was supposed to be a standard dungeon run, not a slaughterhouse. Kenzu yells the names of his teammates, Yomajida and Shikako. It is useless as the ambush was perfectly timed and utterly fatal. He falls to the ground, staring up at the vampire who just dismantled his entire life. Alicia watches him with complete indifference while he curses his own weakness. Akina reaches out with a trembling hand, her fingers trailing through a pool of blood. She gasps out his name, desperate for any sign of hope. Kenzu tries to bridge the gap between them, but his strength is fading fast. All he wants is to reach her before everything goes black. A single tear falls as his vision begins to blur. He is haunted by one final question, wondering why their story had to end like this. Everything was going according to plan today. They were hunting monsters just like any other day. They had survived close calls before, so he did not think they were being overconfident. But now all he can do is gasp out Akina's name as he watches her collapse. He desperately tries to move his heavy limbs. If he could just reach her one last time, maybe things would be different. Akina whispers his name back, her voice barely a breath. They are so close yet separated by a growing pool of blood. Her eyes begin to lose their light as the reality of the ambush finally sinks in. Suddenly, a cheerful voice cuts through the tragedy. Alicia stands over them with a bright smile, thanking them for their hard work as if they were just completing a shift. Kenzu stares up at his killers in total disbelief. Through the pain, he demands to know who they even are. Alicia looks down at him with cold, indifferent eyes. She simply explains that they are just hunting humans. Kenzu can barely process what he just heard. To this vampire, his entire life is nothing more than a resource to be collected. The sheer audacity of her words sends a wave of pure fury through him. He cannot believe she is being this casual about a slaughter. Alicia remains completely calm. She honestly cannot figure out why he is making such a big deal out of their current situation. She points out the obvious hypocrisy. To her, this is the exact same cycle of violence that adventurers participate in every single day. Kenzu is stunned into silence. For the first time in his career, he is seeing the dungeon through the eyes of the hunted. Alicia then asks him a piercing question. She wants to know why they feel the need to broadcast their violence to a live audience. She figures it must be for the money or the fame. Kenzu tries to growl out a response, but her logic is starting to sting. Alicia actually relates to the need for recognition. However, she finds it twisted that humans risk their lives just to fuel their little hobbies. Alicia leans in, her voice dripping with mock sympathy. She tells the dying adventurers they should actually be grateful for this ending. Kenzu struggles to move his heavy limbs as the light fades from his eyes. He curses the monster standing over him with his final breath. Alicia walks away from the carnage without a single scratch on her. To her, this was just another day at the office. Suddenly, she stops in her tracks. She senses that her partner might have some thoughts on the display. She turns to Kuga with a curious look on her face. She asks if he was trying to say something while she was busy. Kuga remains silent as he stares at the aftermath. The brutality of the scene is finally starting to sink in. He realizes that Alicia did not hold back in the slightest. She really went all out to make a point. A B-class party of young hopefuls was just ruthlessly slaughtered. Their journey ended before it could even truly begin. Alicia should not even be roaming this floor with her level of power. It was a complete accident that she even encountered these adventurers in the first place. She turns toward Kuga and asks if the stream is getting decent views. Kuga can only look down and feel bad for the poor souls they just ended. He can barely manage to give her a simple confirmation. The weight of the situation is clearly starting to get to him. Alicia is not bothered by his hesitation. Hearing that the numbers are up is the only thing that matters to her. She leans into the camera to address the audience directly. She wants to know if the humans are finally horrified by her actions. The comments are filled with people calling the scene disgusting and awful. They call Alicia a monster and wish for her death. Alicia is proud of this reaction. She figures that since they are so upset, they must have finally learned their lesson about the cycle of violence. But then, the chat takes a dark turn. The viewers start talking about a strange rush and their brains being on fire. Alicia is left completely stunned by their bloodlust. The chat starts digging up dirt on the dead adventurers, claiming they were the real villains for experimenting on slimes. Kuga watches as the narrative flips in real time. Alicia is completely lost. She expected to be hated as a monster, but the viewers are just asking for more content. The comments get even darker, with people claiming they have awakened a new side of themselves. Alicia starts to panic, realizing these humans are not normal. She turns to Kuga, her voice trembling. The terrifying reality of who her audience actually is begins to sink in. Alicia looks at the screen with pure dread. She asks the one question she never thought she would have to, wondering if humans are actually monsters too. She pushes even further, asking if humans are actually worse than the creatures in the dungeon. Kuga can only offer a weak maybe in response. Kuga takes a deep breath and finally admits the truth. He cannot deny that the people watching are more terrifying than any boss he has ever faced. Everything Alicia worked for is about to fall apart. With the unpredictable nature of humans, her entire plan is officially off track. Alicia reaches out to him. She tells Kuga it is time to hold hands. Kuga is caught off guard. He did not expect things to get this personal so quickly. Alicia stops and waits for him to catch up. She wonders why he is hesitating. She asks if he is just embarrassed. Kuga can only look away and admit that she is right. Alicia gets a kick out of his reaction. She teases him for being surprisingly shy despite his history as a hero. They finally lock hands. Alicia prepares to use a direct warp to get them where they need to go. The world around them blurs as the magic takes effect. Alicia asks him how the transition feels. Kuga looks up and sees a massive gothic metropolis stretching into the sky. Alicia officially welcomes him to the City of Monsters. Alicia introduces the City of Monsters. Usually, this place is strictly off limits to any human. The livestream chat is blowing up. Humans had no idea whole civilization was hidden right under their feet. The city has a strange charm to it. It looks more like a high-end vacation spot than a monster den. Seeing these small, peaceful creatures is changing people's minds. The audience is actually starting to feel bad for the monsters. Alicia is satisfied with the reaction. Her goal to humanize the dungeon is working perfectly. She realizes a historic moment is happening. Kuga is officially the first human to ever enter this city. Kuga is still worried about the safety of this situation. He asks if a human being here is actually allowed. Alicia explains that there is no specific rule against it. Since it is not forbidden, they are going to keep moving forward. Kuga is still on edge about being the only human in a city full of monsters and wonders if he is actually safe. Alicia tells him not to worry because he is officially under her protection. Her usual playful attitude briefly shifts into something much more quiet and serious. She stops to wonder what their relationship actually looks like to the rest of the world. Without a better word for it, she decides he is just her something for the time being. Kuga realizes he has no choice but to accept this strange new title to survive. Being the something of a powerful dungeon boss was now his entire identity in this city. He asks if streaming their location is even allowed, but Alicia claims that since there are no rules, they are doing nothing wrong. The chat is absolutely losing it. This vampire is too carefree for her own good. Viewers are witnessing sights that no human was ever meant to see. Alicia is not just doing this for fun. Her ultimate goal is to become the final boss. But there is a secondary objective behind her stream. She wants to plant a seed of fear in the human heart. By doing this, she hopes to stop the cycle of unethical dungeon streaming forever. The viewers are already starting to crack. Seeing the architecture and the daily lives of monsters is actually charming them. It is hard to hate something that looks so civilized. Even the toughest viewers are starting to feel a bit of sympathy. Seeing these small, cute creatures is making them question everything they knew about dungeons. A massive change in perspective is coming. It is hard to tell if Alicia is a genius or just lucky. She ignores the heavy atmosphere and invites Kuga back to her place. The walk through the city is anything but peaceful. Every monster in the area stops what they are doing to stare at the human. Kuga can barely manage a stutter. The crowd of monsters just keeps growing. Being the first human here makes him the ultimate curiosity. Kuga is realizing just how much of an outsider he really is. Suddenly, a massive shadow looms over them, and a deep voice calls out for the vampire. Kuga freezes in place. The pressure in the air is heavy enough to make any normal person faint. Standing right in front of them is a massive Minotaurus. This thing is a literal walking mountain. The livestream chat hits a breaking point. They instantly recognize the creature as a legendary S-rank boss. To any normal human, this would be a death sentence. But Alicia just greets the beast with a casual smile. She walks right up to the giant, asking him what is wrong. Kuga can only watch from the background, paralyzed by pure terror. The viewers are baffled. They cannot believe how friendly Alicia is being with a literal god of destruction. Alicia does not care about the heavy atmosphere. She tells Kuga to come closer because she is ready to make the introductions. Alicia introduces the massive beast as her friend Min-chan. She then points to Kuga, officially labeling him as her something. To everyone's shock, the legendary boss bows politely and introduces himself with perfect manners. However, Min-chan expresses a bit of worry, claiming that bringing a human here might be a bad idea. He explains that it is just common sense, but his soft voice makes the whole situation feel surreal. He looks directly at Kuga and apologizes for the suddenness of their meeting. The giant is actually impressed, praising Kuga for having the insane courage to step into a city of monsters. The livestream viewers are losing it, admitting that this terrifying boss is actually starting to look cute. Despite the cute vibes, Kuga was worried that a human entering the city might be considered rude. But he had two big reasons for staying, starting with the danger of returning to human society after his party was massacred. The second reason was simple. Alicia likely could not leave the dungeon even if she wanted to. He thought about going his own way, but they have no way to communicate if they separate. Even if they tried to meet up later, any small mistake could ruin the plan. If they lose track of each other now, there is a chance they will never meet again. While Kuga is busy overthinking their future, Alicia is just laughing. The stream chat is already roasting him, calling him a weirdo and a total pain to deal with. Alicia playfully asks if the viewers are talking about her, leaving Kuga completely speechless at her lack of focus. Alicia is still distracted by the chat. She asks Kuga what this Kumazimi name is all about. Kuga keeps it brief. He tells her it was the name of his former adventure party. Alicia just nods like she understands. The group continues their stroll through the heart of the monster city. She quickly shifts her focus back to the giant. Alicia calls out to Min-chan to get his attention. She starts a formal declaration. Alicia points out that while Kuga is a human, he is under her protection. She officially labels him as her something. Alicia gives a cold warning for no one to even think about touching him. Even the legendary S-rank boss is caught off guard. He has no idea what being a something actually means. A new comment pops up on the screen. The viewers are starting to think the giant monster is the only sane person in the room. The stream finally cuts to black. The grand architecture of the monster city stands tall as the digital audience disappears for the day. Alicia stops her walk. Something caught her attention on the stone path. She turns back to Kuga with a sudden idea. She asks him if they can take a quick detour, leading him toward a different part of the city. They arrive at a local market stall. Alicia wonders what his favorite food is, and Kuga casually mentions he likes apples. Alicia picks up a fresh piece of fruit. She admits she likes them too, but her heart is set on the green ones. Alicia asks the price for 2 apples. The vendor tells her it will be 500 yen. Kuga freezes. That name sounds way too familiar. Alicia asks if something is wrong. Kuga tries to brush it off, thinking he just misheard the guy. Alicia does not hesitate and hands over the money. It is a literal 1,000 yen bill, the same currency used on the surface. The vendor hands back a 500 yen coin as change. Kuga cannot believe his eyes. This situation is getting more surreal by the second. Alicia wonders why he is so worked up. Kuga finally explains that seeing human currency in a monster city is the last thing he expected. Alicia does not get the big deal. To her, using Japanese yen is just common sense. Kuga starts to piece it together. If this dungeon uses yen, then the rabbit hole goes much deeper. He wonders if monster cities in other parts of the world use their own local currencies too. According to global records, there are exactly 9 countries on Earth that currently host a dungeon. These 9 nations, including the United States and China, each possess one massive gate. For the local hunters, the entrance to the Japanese dungeon is located right in Tokyo's Ariake district. Since the nearest Asian gates are in China and Thailand, the Japanese dungeon remains isolated with a local population. Kuga finally asks the real question. He wants to know exactly where monsters are getting all this human money from. Alicia explains that all monsters receive these funds in small amounts every single day. Kuga quickly realizes that the dungeon basically provides a universal basic income for its inhabitants. Since the currency is identical to what he knows, Kuga offers to handle the bill for their food. Alicia just gives him a warm smile and insists on treating him since he is her guest today. Later that night, the two of them arrive at a small house on the outskirts of the monster city. Once they head inside, Alicia tells him to make himself at home and just relax. Kuga realizes he is officially crashing at the private residence of a dungeon boss. According to Alicia, this home is only temporary until she finishes constructing her massive main castle. Kuga originally planned to find a local inn for the night. However, Alicia did not see the point and asked why he was hesitating. She insisted on bringing him back to her temporary house instead. Kuga felt a bit awkward being invited into her home so suddenly. Alicia was in a great mood as she set the table for their meal. Her entire dinner consisted of just a single green apple. Kuga could only stare in total silence at her meager portion. He realized that despite being a powerful boss, her lifestyle was surprisingly simple. Night fell over the monster city. Alicia led Kuga to a modest house that would serve as her temporary residence until her castle was finished. The vampire immediately headed for a relaxing soak in the bath. The soft sounds of water filled the quiet rooms of the house. For a powerful dungeon boss, these small moments of peace were rare. She looked completely at ease as the warmth of the water relaxed her. Meanwhile, Kuga sat in the living room trying to process his new reality. The weight of living in a city of monsters was finally starting to sink in. He realized it was time to settle down and have a simple meal. He quietly finished his dinner while waiting for Alicia to finish her bath. It was a humble meal, but it was enough to keep his strength up. With dinner over, it was finally time to head to bed. However, a sudden realization caught Alicia completely off guard. She panicked and admitted that the situation was bad. Kuga could only look at her with confusion, wondering what could possibly be wrong. Alicia could barely find the words as she pointed toward the corner of the room. The situation was definitely bad. She finally shouted the problem that was making her heart race. There was only one bed in the entire house. Kuga stood there frozen, the realization hitting him like a truck. He never prepared for a situation like this. Alicia admitted she was completely careless. Neither of them had considered where a guest was supposed to sleep. The vampire was spiraling. Sharing a tiny bed with a human was completely unheard of for a monster of her rank. Kuga tried to keep his cool. After everything that happened today, a bed shortage was just another weird event on the list. Despite her panic, Alicia wanted to be a good host. She refused to let her guests sleep on the hard floor. She was about to offer a solution, but Kuga was already moving. He grabbed a blanket and walked away, choosing the floor to avoid more drama. Kuga insisted this was the best way to handle the awkward situation. He dropped onto the floor and quickly wrapped himself in a thick blanket. It did not take long for the exhausted human to drift off into a deep sleep. Alicia could only watch him while feeling a strange mix of frustration and confusion. The moon rose high over the quiet monster city as the rest of the world went dark. Alicia eventually stood up and loomed over his sleeping form like a shadow in the night. She sat by his side, her eyes fixed on the human resting peacefully below her. The vampire could not resist the growing temptation as she prepared to finally satisfy her hunger. Alicia leaned over the sleeping hero, her hunger finally reaching a breaking point. Suddenly, a sharp pain pierced his skin, jolting him out of his deep sleep. Kuga bolted awake, his heart racing as he tried to process what just happened. He found Alicia hovering right above him, looking like she just got caught doing something illegal. She quickly apologized while Kuga wondered why her attempt at anesthesia failed so miserably. He looked down to see her pinning him to the floor with a massive syringe in her hand. Alicia fumbled for an excuse, her cool dungeon boss persona completely crumbling under his gaze. She finally confessed, admitting she was only trying to take a little bit of his blood. Alicia admitted she just wanted a small taste. Kuga did not even mind, but he had one simple condition. If she was going to take his blood, she needed to do it while he was actually awake. She apologized through tears, admitting she was addicted. The taste she sampled that morning had been stuck in her head all day. Kuga stared at her in disbelief. He realized that for this powerful vampire, everything else today was just a side quest. Her entire motivation was just a simple craving. She told him his blood was unlike anything she had ever tasted before. Kuga told her to listen carefully. He was not actually angry about the blood, just the way she went about it. He explained that if she had just asked, he would have let her have some. As long as he stayed alive, he was fine with sharing. Alicia's eyes went wide as the shock set in. She could not believe a human was actually offering himself up as a snack. She immediately grabbed his arm with a massive smile. Her mood did a total flip as she thanked him for the unexpected gift. Alicia clutched the syringe like it was the greatest treasure in the world. Her previous panic was gone, replaced by pure excitement. Kuga just sat there, accepting his new role as a high-quality snack. She carefully squeezed out a single drop. It was time for the moment of truth. This was the specific flavor she had been craving since the morning. The taste hit her harder than any magic spell. It was beyond anything she had ever experienced. She was completely lost in the moment. Kuga watched her reaction with a quiet smile. He realized that keeping this powerful vampire happy was actually pretty simple. Their partnership was officially sealed. Kuga wondered if such a small amount would actually satisfy her. Alicia confirmed it was plenty for now. Then he asked the big question. He wanted to know if she ever bit people directly like a traditional vampire. The mere suggestion sent Alicia into a panic. To her, that kind of intimacy was completely inappropriate for multiple reasons. Kuga just nodded along. He realized her vampire rules were much stricter than he expected. Alicia explained that even though they worked together, he was not her servant or a mindless follower. Kuga stayed quiet. He was still trying to wrap his head around how this world really functioned. Night eventually fell over the monster city. The moon hung high as the two unlikely partners settled in. The next morning arrived quickly. A new day meant new challenges for the dungeon boss and her human partner. The day started with a quick victory as the first group of intruders was instantly neutralized. Alicia stood over the site of the battle, ready to move on to the next set of targets. She checked the numbers and confirmed that their total count had officially reached 26. Kuga noted that they had already taken down 8 people since they started this hunt. Alicia had 18 kills before meeting Kuga, but their new partnership was making things move much faster. A system notification appeared, showing that only 4 more kills were needed to satisfy her first promotion requirement. Their live stream was full of comments from fans who thought the latest party was far too weak. Kuga felt the pressure as the chat cheered them on to finish the final 4 hunts. Kuga noticed that his viewers were already adapting to the new invader hunting theme. While some people in the chat were disgusted by the violence, plenty of others sent messages of encouragement. He pushed the comments aside and decided it was time to move. As the duo started looking for their next target, a friendly voice suddenly called out a greeting from behind. Both Kuga and Alicia froze, realizing they were no longer the only ones doing the hunting. A full party of adventurers stood in their way, looking far more prepared than the previous groups they encountered. The livestream comments immediately identified the newcomers as the notorious monster slayers. The leader stepped forward with a grin to officially introduce his A-rank party to the stream. The chat quickly identifies the new arrivals as an A-rank party. They are underlings of a notorious S-rank group called Evil Slayer. The stream viewers explain that this specific S-rank group is famous for hunting monsters in the most brutal ways possible. Their subordinates follow the same cruel path. The leader of the monster slayers steps forward and calls out to the duo. He watches them from across the field. He mentions that their current activity looks pretty interesting. The man notes that Alicia and Kuga have been getting a massive amount of attention lately. Alicia actually starts blushing. She takes the comment as a compliment and giggles at the recognition. Kuga stays focused as the chat warns him about the danger. The viewers know this party is far more aggressive than previous enemies. The fans tell Alicia to stay alert. The atmosphere shifts as the confrontation with the monster slayers truly begins. The monster slayers do not waste any time. These A-rank hunters carry twisted smiles, looking at Alicia and Kuga like prey rather than actual opponents. They have built a reputation on cruelty, and they are ready to live up to it. Without a word of warning, Shidahara lunges forward with blinding speed. He slams his blade into the ground, shattering the earth and forcing the duo to scramble back. The sheer power behind the strike proves he is not just talking big. Kuga and Alicia regain their footing as dust fills the air. They can tell immediately that this group is on a completely different level than the weaklings they fought earlier today. The atmosphere is heavy with killing intent. Shidahara stands back and watches them with a cocky grin. He carries himself with the absolute confidence of a man who has never lost a fight against a monster. To him, this is just another day at the office. He mocks them for managing to survive his opening move. He seems genuinely surprised that a lowly monster and a fallen hero could move fast enough to avoid his initial strike. Alicia turns to Kuga to double-check their status. She needs to be absolutely sure these guys are the A-class targets she needs for her promotion. Kuga confirms it, even though he is clearly worried about the gap in power. Instead of being intimidated, Alicia looks thrilled. She realizes her luck is actually great today. Finding an elite party like this means she can finally check off the most difficult requirements on her rank-up list. She begins walking toward the hunters with total confidence, leaving Kuga stunned in the background. He realized in that moment that his vampire partner is not just a streamer. She is a predator looking for her next meal. Alicia looks at the hunters like a shark eyeing bait. A system window confirms her next mission. To reach the rank of SS-class boss, she needs to take down 30 invaders and one A-rank party. This fight is exactly what she needs to level up. Shidahara does not wait for an invitation. He lunges forward with his blade, calling the encounter a total steal. To him, Alicia is just another trophy waiting to be claimed. The fencer is completely unhinged. He screams at her to bring it on, his face twisted into a manic grin. He is not here to play. He is here to kill. The battlefield erupts into chaos as the two forces collide. Shidahara moves with blinding speed, forcing Alicia to stay on the defensive. The power gap between this group and previous hunters is massive. The fencer clicks his tongue in frustration. His opening strike usually ends the fight instantly, but Alicia is holding her own. She is proving much harder to kill than he expected. Instead of getting worried, Shidahara starts laughing. The challenge only fuels his bloodlust. He thrives on the struggle of a difficult hunt and enjoys every second of the violence. The livestream is blowing up with new comments. Viewers admit that even though the monster slayers are notorious for their cruelty, their skills are legitimate. They are actually going toe-to-toe with a vampire boss. One fan warns the chat to keep their eyes on the leader. Shidahara is a high-speed fencer who can end a life in a single heartbeat. Alicia and Kuga are in for the fight of their lives. One of the monster slayers kicks off the assault. He screams out a fireball spell, aiming to turn the vampire into a pile of ash instantly. Alicia is caught off guard. She realizes immediately that these guys are much faster than the weaklings she fought earlier today. The explosion rocks the battlefield. Alicia barely has time to register the heat before the next wave of attacks comes crashing in. She swings her massive weapon to clear the smoke. Alicia needs to create some breathing room before the group manages to surround her. The hunters hold their ground. Even her heaviest strikes are met with solid resistance as they tank the impact behind their enchanted shields. Shidahara sees an opening and lunges forward with a manic grin. He screams at her to take his strikes, moving with a speed that is hard to track. He shouts at Alicia to keep her hands off him, his face twisted into a mask of pure bloodlust. Alicia clicks her tongue in frustration. This guy is a total pest, and she is quickly losing her patience with his cocky attitude. Shidahara is done talking. He lunges forward with everything he has, screaming for his opponent to take his best shot. He immediately triggers a high-speed skill called Quick Slash. The blade moves like a total blur, aiming to end the fight in a single stroke. Kuga barely flinches as the strike closes the distance. He tracks every movement, waiting for the perfect split second to react. Shidahara is losing his mind. He cannot believe this random guy is staying so composed in the face of an A-rank skill. Kuga steps firmly in front of Alicia, drawing his blade with a cold gaze. He is officially done playing the sidekick. Alicia watches from behind, trying her best to keep her cool dungeon boss persona intact. She claims she did not actually need any help, but Kuga just gives her a flat look. He knows she is just being stubborn. She finally admits it is nice to see him stop holding back. It was about time the fallen hero showed the world what he could really do. Alicia is finally on board. She is ready to see her partner actually go all out. She steps back, giving Kuga the green light to lead the charge. While he handles the leader, she will personally wipe out the rest of the party. Kuga is locked in. He is finally embracing his role as a fighter instead of just a support player. Shidahara is fuming. He refuses to let the vampire and her pet walk away from this fight. The fencer moves with blinding speed. He wants to end this confrontation before Kuga can even blink. He mocks the fallen hero for trying to play protector. To him, Kuga is just another easy target looking for a death wish. Shidahara finds the idea of a duel hilarious. He thinks Kuga choosing a close-range fight is the most arrogant mistake he could make. As an A-rank fencer, Shidahara is built for speed and precision. In this world, his blade is a blur that most humans cannot even see. Alicia looks back, asking how it feels to finally take a human life. Kuga takes a second to think about the man he just cut down. Honestly, it felt no different than killing a regular monster. Alicia loves the response and tells him to keep that same energy. Suddenly, a bright notification appears right in front of him. His job stone begins to glow with an intense light. This can only mean one thing: a brand new job tree is finally unlocked. Alicia runs over to celebrate, clearly satisfied with how the day turned out. Alicia is glowing. 2 major milestones are officially in the bag. Her path to becoming an SS rank boss is finally taking shape. Wiping out that A rank party checked off the hardest requirement yet. Kuga realizes the live stream is still running. He never actually told the chat about Alicia's rank-up conditions, and the viewers are losing their minds with curiosity. The celebration is cut short. A blur of white and gold lunges from the shadows, aiming a lethal strike right at the heart of the camp. The duo is caught totally off guard. A sudden spike in killing intent makes the air feel thick and heavy. Alicia reaches out instinctively, but the attacker is moving too fast to track. Everything is happening in a fraction of a second. The intruder streaks past Kuga like a bolt of lightning. This is not some random adventurer. This is top-tier elite speed. Kuga recognizes the face immediately. Saintess Yulia has arrived on the battlefield, and she is clearly not here for a friendly chat. Kuga is completely stunned by the sudden arrival. This was the last person he expected to see on the battlefield. The livestream chat is exploding as Saintess Yulia makes her entrance. She is a top-tier vanguard and her presence changes the entire vibe of the fight. To understand why everyone underestimates Kuga, you have to look at his official report. As a hero, he is a jack of all trades with flat ranks across the board. The system claims he does not master any single category, making his special ability seem useless to elite parties. Shidahara is the total opposite. He is a specialized fencer with a massive S rank in agility. He is built for pure speed and lethal precision, exactly what this world values most. Shidahara is done talking and draws his blade. He wants to end this duel as quickly as possible and get back to his hunt. He looks down on Kuga with pure contempt. In his mind, he is the only one here who actually deserves the title of an elite adventurer. He mocks Kuga for being a talentless loser who does not belong on this level. He is convinced his specialized stats make him invincible against a generalist. Shidahara prepares to end it in a single strike. He activates his acceleration magic, turning himself into a blinding blur of steel. Shidahara is a blur of movement, but Kuga is not backing down. The two blades collide with enough force to shake the ground. Shidahara smirks, confident that his S-rank agility will end this in seconds. As their swords grind against each other, Shidahara starts the trash talk. He thinks it is pathetic that a hero would ever team up with a monster. To an elitist like him, this entire situation is just a bad joke. He mocks Kuga for even believing in his own title. Shidahara is convinced that the system fooled Kuga into thinking he was special, when in reality, he is just a talentless generalist with no future. The insults get personal as Shidahara brings up the past. He laughs at the fact that Kuga was abandoned by his own party. He assumes they bailed because Kuga was nothing but a burden holding them back. Kuga remains silent, but he finally stops doubting himself. He realizes the truth about his old life. Without his constant support and balancing, his former team was never as perfect as they seemed. Kumazimi was a powerful party, and they would have crushed an opponent like Shidahara instantly. But Kuga knows he was the one who made those victories possible. He was the foundation they took for granted. That party used to be his entire world. He spent years looking at their backs and making sure they succeeded. But seeing them walk away for the last time finally broke the spell. Kuga tightens his grip and clears his head. He is done living for a party that did not want him. Whatever happens next, he is going to fight for himself and the new path he has chosen. Kuga strikes with lethal precision, ending the duel in a single, decisive moment. The monster slayers watch in terror as their leader falls before their eyes. Alicia handles the remaining members, leaving no one left to tell the tale. Alicia feels her rank-up requirements clicking into place as the system registers the win. The livestream audience is stunned, and the chat begins to explode with reactions. One comment stands out from the rest, acknowledging the serious power on display. Alicia smiles at Kuga, noting that he has finally crossed the point of no return. Kuga looks at the path ahead and admits that there is no turning back now. Kuga realized that when you kill someone for the very first time, something deep inside you shifts. Sure, adventurers in this world have the luxury of reviving through specialized magic circles. But that second chance only triggers once the person is actually dead and gone. No matter how short the duration is, the act of taking a life remains a heavy burden to carry. Just like that, the monster slayers were hit with a lifetime ban from every dungeon in existence. Their status was wiped, resulting in a permanent game over for their lives as elite adventurers. Alicia stood by his side, noting that for a vampire like her, this kind of outcome was always inevitable. Around 50 years ago, dungeons suddenly appeared all over the earth. These new realms were crawling with powerful monsters. But at the same time, when humans stepped into these mysterious spaces, they awakened special jobs and magical abilities. Fast forward to the modern era. Dungeon exploration has turned into a massive spectator sport, where streaming has become the norm. And as you know, this is the story of our boy Kuga, a hero who was known as a jack of all trades. But because of this, he was kicked out of his party and dumped into a hidden boss chamber to die. However, the boss who appeared before him was the beautiful vampire girl Alicia. This powerful dungeon boss, however, showed an almost childlike fascination with streaming. With nowhere else to go, Kuga reluctantly teamed up with Alicia. Together, they began an unprecedented hunter streaming series, targeting other adventurers. But as they were broadcasting their next hunt, a new challenger appeared, lunging at them with incredible speed. The attack came out of nowhere, catching even the vampire boss completely off guard. A massive blade sliced through the air, aimed directly at Alicia. The ground shattered from the sheer force of the impact, sending a shockwave through the area. As the dust settled, the stream's chat exploded. Their surprise guest was none other than the Saintess Yulia, a vanguard from Kuga's old party. Alicia brushed herself off, looking a little stunned. "Whoa," she admitted. "That surprised me." Alicia whirls around, demanding to know what her attacker's problem is for swinging out of nowhere. But the Saintess Yulia just snarls back, telling her to shut up. Yulia furiously accuses Alicia of being a damn thieving cat who trashed all their hard work. Alicia, completely baffled by the insult, can only let out a confused sound. Just then, a comment from the stream chat catches her eye. A viewer points out that this girl is from Kuga's old party. The realization dawns on Alicia as she struggles to remember the team's name. Yulia cuts in, her voice sharp. "It's Kumazimi," she corrects, adding that Alicia left out the most important detail. Alicia is still trying to process everything that's happening, but the pieces are starting to click into place. Her eyes narrow as she connects the dots. She looks straight at Yulia and asks, "You're one of the people who kicked Kuga out, huh?" Yulia admits it without hesitation. Alicia then presses her, demanding to know what her business is with them now. Hearing this exchange, Kuga, who had been watching silently from the side, is suddenly reminded of something. He remembers that day. When his party kicked him out, Yulia didn't say a single word. She just stood there, keeping her mouth shut. Back then, nobody knew what she was thinking, and it seems nothing's changed. Yulia mutters that she's not great at talking. Then her voice cracks the silence, "So I'll just beat your ass instead." Without another word, she lunges forward, a blur of motion closing the distance in an instant. Alicia is completely stunned by the Saintess's explosive speed. Meanwhile, the stream chat goes wild. Viewers are hyped, calling it a showdown between the vampire and the muscle-brain Saintess, Miss Gorilla. The nickname sticks instantly, flooding the comments. As far as the audience is concerned, Miss Gorilla has arrived. The stream chat exploded with confusion, not knowing who to root for in this sudden brawl. Even Alicia was completely thrown off by the raw power of her new opponent. But the viewers were right about one thing. Miss Gorilla was the real deal. She was a Saintess who spammed magic like a brawler, unafraid to unleash light-based attacks at point-blank range. This aggressive style, combined with her striking appearance, had made her the most popular member of Kumazimi. Without warning, Yulia activates her skill, Magic, Holy Night. Alicia watches, wide-eyed, as a wave of holy energy erupts from the Saintess. Yulia plants her feet firmly on the ground. Then she leaps forward, bringing her weapon down with incredible force. A massive slash of light magic carves through the battlefield, a terrifying display of the Saintess's overwhelming power. But in the epicenter of the blast, Alicia stands completely unfazed, her battle axe held steady. The two women immediately launch into a furious melee, trading blows that shake the ground. From the sidelines, Kuga can only watch in silence. He thinks to himself, but seriously, this is way more intense than I thought. He can see it now. Even Yulia, the powerhouse Saintess, is starting to lose ground. She clicks her tongue in frustration, feeling the tide of battle turn. Alicia sees her chance. Dark, vampiric energy begins to coalesce around her weapon. With a burst of speed, she lunges forward, channeling her power into one devastating strike. The attack connects, sending Yulia crashing to the ground, completely outmatched. But Alicia doesn't press her advantage. Instead, she turns to Kuga with a concerned look, asking, "Hey Kuga, what's your deal?" But Kuga doesn't answer her question. He just sits there, his gaze fixed on the woman who attacked them. Then, without a word, he stands up and walks directly towards the defeated Saintess, leaving Alicia watching from behind. He raises his hand over Yulia's battered form and calmly utters a single command: heal. A gentle, golden light washes over Yulia's injuries. The powerful healing magic instantly begins to mend her wounds. Kuga stands over his former comrade, his face unreadable as the spell finishes its work. Alicia can only watch in confusion. She has no idea what Kuga is thinking. Yulia looks up at him, her eyes wide with a mix of shock and something else, whispering his name. But Kuga's response is ice cold: "Yulia, just leave." Yulia is in disbelief. She stammers, asking if he's really talking to her. Without even looking at her, Kuga confirms it.
"Yeah, Yulia, you..."
But the Saintess isn't ready to back down. She insists that she's not done yet. Kuga turns his back to her, simply stating that's true. He acknowledges that someone as powerful as Yulia wouldn't be defeated this easily, admitting neither she nor Alicia have shown even half their strength. But he cuts the thought short. This fight isn't about who's stronger. He explains that since being kicked out of their old party, he's become something new. He then issues a final warning: "If you mess with Alicia, I won't let it slide." And just like that, the line is drawn. Kuga stands firmly with Alicia, leaving his former comrade completely isolated. But Kuga is caught completely off guard. He can only watch as the Saintess begins to tremble. Tears well up in Yulia's eyes. His cold rejection has completely shattered her. Suddenly, she lets out a heartbreaking wail, screaming, "Sarah, you absolute dumbass." And with that, she turns and runs, sobbing as she flees into the distance, leaving Kuga and Alicia completely speechless. The stream chat, however, is not so silent. Viewers flood the feed. "You made her cry, bro. Yep, full on waterworks. Real tears." Kuga starts to spiral, wondering if he's the bad guy in this situation. But another thought cuts through the noise. Wait, did she just call me Sira? Alicia, seeing his internal conflict, quietly speaks up, thanks for that. As they continue on their path, Kuga remains lost in thought. He can't shake the feeling that he's missing something important. His mind was still reeling from Yulia's parting words, but their journey continued. Before long, a new sight broke the horizon, a sprawling city with towering spires that clawed at the night sky. With the strange encounter behind them, Alicia's eyes lit up with a new mission, declaring that it was time to get some minions. Kuga, still reeling from the fight with Yulia, was caught completely off guard, managing only a confused, yeah, sure. His mind was still trying to piece together why Yulia, a powerful saintess, would come alone just to fight Alicia. But Kuga wasn't the type to overthink things. Instead of dwelling on it, he simply sent Yulia a message asking if she made it back safely. He pulled out his device, but all he got in return was a very short reply. He'd asked, made it back okay, and she just responded with a single word, yeah. Shaking it off, Kuga decided to refocus on the task at hand, which was Alicia's grand plan to become an S-rank boss. And as it turned out, one of the main conditions for that promotion was the very thing Alicia had just declared, acquiring some powerful minions. Kuga pulls up the official checklist for becoming an SS-rank boss. Defeating invaders and an A-rank party were already checked off, but the next requirement was a big one, recruit an S-rank boss as a minion. He turns to Alicia, holding up the list. Well, that's all fine and good. But he hesitates, looking a little confused. This S-rank boss condition thing. He asks for clarification. Does that mean taking one down is also part of the deal? Alicia's eyes sparkle as she confirms, exactly. Kuga just blankly responds, got it. The implications start to sink in for him, so that means. He thinks of the only S-rank boss they know personally. We're talking about turning something like that Minotaur into a minion, right? Alicia's response is immediate and absolute no way. Alicia screams that Min-chan is her friend. She would never ever turn her into a minion. Kuga understands immediately. So with the Minotaur off the table, he has to find another option. He pulls up the current S-rank boss list. Basilisk, Arachne, Werewolf, Slime, Undead, Spirit Fox, and a Mech Soldier. The system explains the history. Originally, there was only one S-rank boss, an evil spirit known as the Jockey. But after it was defeated, it inexplicably split into 8. Since then, anytime a boss is killed, a new one takes its place. So the world is locked into a system where there are always 8 S-rank bosses active at any given time. And as it turns out, taking one of them down is also a requirement for human adventurer parties to get promoted to S-rank. But for Kuga, who'd only ever been an A-rank adventurer, all this talk of S-rank bosses was completely uncharted territory. So he decides to get back to basics, asking Alicia, by the way, how exactly do you get a minion to follow you? Alicia explains that usually it's entirely up to their own free will. In other words, she continues, you need to make them want to submit to you, mentally speaking. Kuga quietly responds, gotcha. But then she adds, actually, in my case, there's another way. Kuga immediately puts 2 and 2 together. You mean, sucking their blood directly? Alicia confirms his suspicion. Exactly. But then she admits, honestly, I don't like doing that. Kuga is surprised by her hesitation. Didn't take you for someone with a moral compass. But Alicia quickly shuts that down. No, it's not that. Alicia clarifies that her hesitation isn't about morals. She just doesn't want to drink blood she doesn't like. Kuga is completely baffled by her picky eater logic, but decides to keep the thought to himself. Instead, he starts thinking about their recent fights. He realizes that Alicia has always absorbed blood through her tentacles instead of drinking it directly, with the sole exception of his own. It becomes clear that she has a very particular preference. Kuga speculates out loud, wondering if it's because he has O-type blood. He vaguely recalls hearing somewhere that O-type blood is more attractive to insects. Of course, he was completely confusing a trivia fact about mosquitoes with the dietary habits of a vampire. Putting the strange thought aside, he gets back to the mission at hand. So, Alicia. Kuga gets straight to the point, asking Alicia who she's planning to target for her S-rank minion. From a distance, a mischievous laugh echoes back at him. With a wide, confident grin, Alicia declares she's already made her choice. And with their target set, the scene shifts, indicating their journey has begun. They arrive deep within the Japanese dungeon, on the 32nd underground floor. The system explains that this dungeon is divided into 2 distinct parts. There are the upper layers, a colossal structure that reaches all the way from the Earth's surface into the sky. And then there are the lower layers, which stretch from the surface deep into the Earth's crust. Interestingly, the system notes that the difficulty of both the upper and lower layers is exactly the same. To give an example, the system clarifies that the 15th upper floor, and because of this unique, mirrored structure, the Japanese dungeon was nicknamed the Double-Headed Dungeon, has roughly the same level of difficulty as the 15th lower floor. A notification further explains the dungeon's layout. Generally, the higher the floor, the larger it tends to be. Furthermore, every 10 floors is a designated safe zone where no monsters appear, making places like the 10th, 20th, and 30th floors popular camping spots. The 10th and 20th floors in particular have developed into considerably large towns for explorers. Bringing the focus back to their own situation, the system notes that Alicia's hidden room is located deep down on the 4/3 underground floor. However, a visual confirms that due to her long absence, the entrance has been completely sealed off. The system continues to explain the dungeon structure. The S-rank bosses are located on the 45th floors, both upper and lower. But beyond that, the 49th floor is unique. This special floor is divided into 3 upper sections and 3 lower sections. And each of these sections is home to one of the 6 legendary SS-rank bosses. However, a critical rule governs their existence. If an S-rank boss is defeated by humans, that position remains permanently vacant. The system has no way to replace them. Understanding the implications, Kuga stops. He turns to Alicia, the pieces finally clicking into place. So, he asks where they're headed. The scene shifts to floor B32, a classic underground dungeon with rough rocky walls. Kuga is impressed that the viewers already know this floor, as the chat buzzes with speculation about who their target could be. Then, the answer appears in the comments, kobolds. Alicia confirms it with a wide, excited grin. That's right. She hovers in the air, making a grand announcement for the stream. Today, we're raiding the kobold colony. And wiping them out in one go, she declares, completely fired up. But as they press forward, Kuga clarifies the true objective. The plan is to attack the kobold colony and turn the entire population into their minions. But as they press on toward the kobold colony, Alicia suddenly comes to a halt. Hey Kuga, she says, getting his attention. She points towards a lone figure in the distance. A human woman. Alicia turns to him. What should we do, she asks. Aren't you going to hunt her? Kuga's answer is calm. It depends on the opponent. He explains his personal rule. He generally won't hunt anyone who shows no hostility toward monsters. But Alicia points out the obvious flaw. They can't tell if she's hostile from this distance. Besides, she adds with a cynical look, it's rare to find any explorer who isn't hostile to monsters these days. Kuga concedes the point, but he adds that it's just as rare to find monsters that aren't hostile towards humans. As they watch the lone figure from a distance, Kuga feels a sense of unease. Something is definitely off about her being alone down here. He notices another strange detail. She isn't using a streaming drone, which is practically unheard of for dungeon explorers. Kuga mulls it over. While solo explorers aren't impossible, they are exceptionally rare, especially on a floor this deep. He remembers his old teammate Yulia. Even for someone with her incredible skills, wandering alone is never recommended. The fact that she's alone is strange enough, but Kuga also notes that she seems distracted and not at all on guard. Alicia watches her intently, sensing the same thing. The girl looks completely lost, almost as if she doesn't know what she's doing. Suddenly, a strange magical aura surrounds the explorer. Her words drift towards them, chilling them to the bone. She's disabling her auto-revive. Alicia watches in confusion. What's she doing? Kuga can only mutter. This is bad. He turns to Alicia, his expression grim. She might be trying to commit suicide. Alicia is stunned, but Kuga's mind is already racing. If she can disable her revive, that means she must be a reviver. We need to be careful. We can't lose a precious one. A system notification clarifies her rare job class, Reviver, the only job capable of using auto-revive magic. And right now, this Reviver is standing in a magic circle, actively disabling her own spell. On top of that, only a Reviver has this ability. They are the only ones who can willingly turn off their own resurrection. Kuga begins to explain the standard procedure. Usually, before entering a dungeon, Alicia explains that explorers pay a hefty fee to a revive insurance company. This system ensures automatic resurrection if they die in a dungeon, allowing them to explore without any real risk. It's all made possible by a rare class of adventurer called a Reviver, who casts the spell on them beforehand. Before anyone can even enter a dungeon, they have to pass through a special checkpoint that verifies the revive spell is active. But there's a loophole. Once inside, the only person who can actually disable their own revive spell is the Reviver themselves. This job is incredibly rare, and almost all of them are hired by insurance companies, so spotting one inside a dungeon is a once-in-a-lifetime event. Kuga thanks her for the detailed explanation. For Alicia, the pieces are clicking into place. Suddenly, a spark ignites in her eyes. She grabs Kuga with a look of pure determination, declaring, Kuga, we have to do this. He has no idea what she's talking about. Alicia's eyes gleamed with a brilliant, if slightly unhinged idea. If the girl's job class is that valuable, she declared, then they'll just make her a minion. Without a moment's hesitation, she charged forward, shouting a friendly warning that only terrified the poor girl even more. The stream chat, however, was absolutely loving it, giving mad props for her decisiveness. Viewers reminded everyone that this was the same vamp who turned the tables on her own hunters just a few days ago. Panicked, the Reviver turned and fled, with Alicia closing in right behind her. But as the girl scrambled to get away, Alicia suddenly pulled up short. Wait a minute, she thought. There had to be a better way to handle this. Alicia's better way was to skip the chase entirely. Instead, she unleashed her power. Shadowy tentacles erupted from the ground, wrapping around the Reviver and stopping her dead in her tracks. Kuga shouts her name in alarm, but Alicia just wipes a bit of drool from her mouth, muttering that it was a close call. She admits her predatory instincts are kicking in. When she sees the girl, she can't help but want to hunt her. Kuga watches her transform into a metaphorical monster, dryly wondering if she's part beer. He turns to his camera drone and apologizes to the viewers. He then announces that for what's about to happen next, he's ending the stream. Immediately, the chat floods with confused messages, asking why he's suddenly cutting the feed. Off-stream, the situation intensifies as Alicia's tentacles fully envelop the struggling reviver, leaving her completely restrained. Back on the stream, the chat quickly pieces it together, with viewers speculating that Kuga cut the feed because things were getting sensitive. And just like that, a final message appears for the audience. The stream has ended. Now in private, the reviver continues to thrash against her bonds, screaming for them not to stop her, determined to end her own life. She looks at Kuga, her face flushed with a mix of fear and desperation. She begs him to just put her out of her misery, pleading for him to kill her with his sword. Alicia simply watches her, a thoughtful expression crossing her face as she considers the girl's plea. But then, she completely dismisses the request, asking why the girl wants to die so badly before bluntly stating, "Sorry, I'm not that interested." The reviver can only stare back in utter confusion. Alicia leans in with a sly grin. "But if you're ending it anyway," she says, "why not indulge in some pleasure before you go?" The reviver is completely lost, stammering, "What? What do you mean by that?" Alicia changes the subject entirely. "Do you like dogs?" The girl can only repeat the word in confusion, "Dogs." But she answers honestly, a slight blush on her cheeks. "Well, I do like them quite a bit." That's all Alicia needed to hear. "Oh, that's great," she cheers, immediately grabbing the reviver and pulling her along. Her grip is firm as she declares, "Then let's go." She starts dragging the confused girl away, with Kuga trailing helplessly behind them. Alicia gives a cheerful thumbs up, announcing their final destination, to Dog Paradise. With the stream back online, the girl introduces herself as Kushina. Kuga greets her warmly as the three of them continue their journey together. Alicia turns to their new companion with a curious question, asking if Kushina has any idea who they are. Kushina apologizes, admitting that she doesn't really know anything about them. As they walk, she hazards a guess, asking if they might be famous streamers. Alicia just brushes it off, saying not really. She smiles, adding that it's totally fine if Kushina doesn't know who they are. But as Alicia downplays their status, the live stream chat immediately chimes in, telling her that they're actually pretty famous. The viewers elaborate, explaining that in terms of popularity, they are the hottest topic right now. This news seems to surprise Alicia. Kushana, however, just looks on in confusion. A caption explains that unlike Alicia, she can't hear the voices of the viewers. Ignoring the stream's confusion, Alicia claps her hands together with a bright smile. "Well then, anyway," she announces, "for now, let's choose the Dog's Paradise." Kushina is still completely lost. "Choose the Dog's Paradise," she asks, "What do you mean by that?" Alicia just waves her on, leading the way with absolute confidence. "Just wait and see," she says over her shoulder, "you'll understand." It turns out the Dog's Paradise is a series of monster colonies. The first property they inspect is a rocky cave, home to what look like Dakshunned kobolds. But Alicia is unimpressed. She takes one look at the place and immediately dismisses it. It's a bit iffy, this place." The tour continues to the second property, a set of ruins guarded by fierce, wolf-like monsters. Their third stop is a grand, fairy tale castle populated by fluffy, poodle-like creatures. But even this opulent choice doesn't meet her standards. Alicia tilts her head, still searching for the perfect spot, almost but not quite. Their tour brings them to a fourth property, a Japanese-style estate guarded by what look like Shiba Inu monsters. As soon as she lays eyes on it, Alicia's face lights up. "Oh, this place looks pretty good, doesn't it?" She turns to Kuga for his opinion. "What do you think? It's got a nice vibe, don't you think?" Kuga agrees, noting how calm and nice it seems while Alicia hums in consideration. With that, she makes up her mind. "Let's go with this one then." But as they prepare to move forward, she notices Kushina hasn't moved. Kushina finally puts the pieces together, her voice trembling slightly. Is this perhaps a kobold colony? She stares at the creatures standing watch, realizing they aren't just decorations. There are guards here. When questioned, Kushina just confirms it. Yeah, she likes dogs. So what? Alicia simply hums, her plan already in motion. And just like that, they arrive. Kushina is completely stunned, shouting that this must be what Alicia meant by Dog's Paradise. Alicia beams with pride. Exactly. A place where you can pet and cuddle kobolds. She asks Kushina if she's happy, already knowing the answer. One of the cute but stern dog monsters lets out a sharp bark, standing its ground. As they approach, it becomes clear. At the entrance to a grand mansion, kobolds stand as guards. And it's not just one type. A quick scan reveals that depending on the colony, the kobolds' appearances change completely. That must be why Alicia chose this specific place with its distinct Japanese architecture. The kobolds here look exactly like Shiba Inus. Bro, we must hype that shit, maybe your Shiba Inu price go up, ha. And their fluffy cheeks were just irresistible. Kushina couldn't help but let out a squeal, completely overwhelmed by how cute they were. Even she, who had been so dissatisfied just moments before, couldn't resist the primal urge to pet the fluffy creatures. Her hands trembled as she whispered how badly she wanted to touch them. One of the Shiba kobolds seemed to welcome her, letting out a friendly bark. But as Kushina reached out, its expression turned vicious and it lunged to attack. Kuga immediately jumped in front of her to take the blow. Before he could even process what happened, the kobold's jaws clamped down hard on his arm. "Nice one, Kuga," Alicia says calmly, praising his quick save. She turns to a stunned Kushina, warning her that even though kobolds look cute, they can be incredibly fierce. Kushina can only stammer out an apology for her recklessness. But Alicia isn't scolding her, instead offering a vital piece of information. A kobold's weak spot is its throat. She explains that if you stroke their throat, they'll calm down completely. And to prove her point, the once vicious creature now sits placidly. In an instant, the aggressive guards have been completely tamed, sitting obediently at Alicia's feet like well-trained puppies. With the entrance now secure, Alicia cheerfully announces it's time to head inside the mansion. But as they prepare to move, Kushina hesitates. She calls out to Kuga, who turns back, wondering what's wrong. Her eyes are fixed on his bleeding hand as she apologizes again, her voice trembling with guilt for getting him hurt. Kuga just brushes it off with a smile. He tells her it's fine and not to worry about it at all. But Kushina isn't having it. She grabs his arm, insisting that it's not fine at all. Ignoring his protests, she tells him to let her help. Without waiting for an answer, she places her hand over his and casts a healing spell. A warm, gentle light envelops Kuga's hand, mending the bite wound completely. Kuga is surprised. He admits her healing is good, even noting internally that it feels warmer than his own. His compliment seems to catch her off guard. She reveals that it's her first time actively using a healing spell. She explains that as a professional reviver, she usually just relies on auto-revival insurance to bring people back. Kuga just listens, a look of quiet understanding on his face. With a bright smile, Kushina finishes her spell. "You should be fine now," she declares. Kuga thanks her profusely, but she shakes her head. "No problem. I should be the one thanking you." A moment of silence hangs between them as Kuga takes in her words. Flustered, Kushina tries to change the subject. "So shall we get going?" Kuga glances past her, wondering if their boss is getting impatient. "Yeah," he says with a knowing look. "She'll be fine." And right on cue, a familiar voice cuts through the air. "Hey-oh." Alicia hovers by the mansion entrance, looking completely fed up. "Why haven't you guys come in yet?" As she turns away in a huff, she complains they're too slow. Kuga just smirks at Kushina and says, "See." All Kushina can do is agree. By the time they catch up, Alicia is already buried in a mountain of fluffy kobolds. She proudly announces that she's finished taming all of them, leaving Kuga and Kushina utterly speechless. The stream chat, of course, is going wild. One viewer perfectly captures the moment, commenting that the vampire works way too fast. Another viewer points out how the stream turned into a simple healing session, prompting Kuga to apologize to the audience for the delay. With the entrance finally secured, the group proceeds into the kobold colony, revealing a serene, Japanese-style mansion. Alicia is already deep in conversation with what appears to be the leader of the colony, showing off her new subjects. Kushina, who was almost attacked earlier, now cautiously pets one of the fluffy creatures, a blush creeping onto her face. Watching her, Kuga seems to make a decision. He quietly pauses the stream and turns to Kushina, asking if he can talk to her for a moment. She stops walking and turns back to face him, agreeing to hear him out. Kuga starts with a strange question, asking her why she undid her revival insurance. He continues, saying he'd heard that healers were rare and had a secure future. But Kushina cuts him off, confirming that's exactly the reason. Kuga is completely lost, unable to understand her logic. As they walk, Kushina begins to explain, asking herself why she ever chased stability in the first place. She admits she took the safe route and joined Relive Insurance. It was a solid, reliable job with good bonuses, no overtime and no pressure. But that very safety net came with a price. She got revived the day before yesterday. And then she was revived again just yesterday, hinting at a soul-crushing cycle. She admits that even though she took a break today, she'll probably be right back in the cycle tomorrow. Just revival after revival. She tells Kuga that's her entire life now as he listens in silence. She gets it. She knows her job is for the sake of others. But living entirely for someone else's safety has become exhausting. Realizing how bleak that sounded, she suddenly backpedals. She quickly clarifies that she wasn't thinking of ending her life or anything dramatic like that. Fidgeting nervously, she tries to explain that she was just in a weird mood. What she really wanted was some excitement. She was craving the thrill of a real adventure. Kuga nods, understanding completely. He knew exactly what she was talking about. With the popularization of automatic resurrection magic, the risks dropped to almost zero, allowing people to enter dungeons without fear. And so, dungeon exploration turned into a form of mainstream entertainment. This new demand is why the resurrectionist profession was born. But Kushina believes it comes with its own kind of curse. She muses that while the pay is good and some people find the work fulfilling, not everyone does. A smile creeps across Alicia's face as she says, "So then, why don't you become my minion?" Kushina stares back, completely stunned by the offer. Barely processing the words, she asks minion, "What do you mean by that?" Kuga sighs, realizing she's missed the most important detail this whole time. He points to his boss and clarifies Alicia's a monster. The simple statement shatters Kushina's entire understanding of the situation. She stammers, admitting she saw the wings and horns, but just assumed they were accessories. But as the truth sinks in, a horrifying thought dawns on her. She turns back to Kuga and asks nervously, "Then what about you?" He just smiles and replies, "I'm human." Kushina freezes, the revelation short-circuiting her brain. Finally, after a moment of stunned silence, she manages a single word. Then, remembering Alicia's offer, she bows her head and shouts, "Sorry, I can't." Her sudden refusal catches both Alicia and Kuga completely off guard. "Huh, why not?" Kushina tries to explain her very down-to-earth reasoning. Becoming a monster's minion, that's just... She finishes with a pained expression, admitting, "My mom would kill me." Alicia was starting to see the reality of the situation. Kuga realized that trying to end it all would just cause more trouble, but he decided not to say it out loud. Kushina continued walking, admitting she could not believe some people were actually reckless enough to risk everything. Kuga just nodded along. He knew better than anyone that Alicia was exactly the kind of person Kushina was talking about. Alicia immediately took offense, pointing out that she knew he was talking about her. Meanwhile, Kushina just focused on her drink and stayed quiet. A moment of silence followed as Kushina considered her own life. She admitted that maybe it was time for her to finally break out of her shell and change her routine. Seizing the moment, Alicia leaned in with sparkling eyes. She officially asked Kushina to join her and become her newest minion. The rejection was instant. Kushina shouted that her mom would literally kill her if she ever became a monster minion. Alicia accepted the news calmly, nodding as she tried to make sense of the sudden rejection. While she missed out on a healer, the mission was still a success because Alicia had officially turned the kobold colony into her new minions. Recruiting a human was proving to be much harder than handling monsters, as Kushina just would not budge. After clearing the dungeon's third floor, the duo decided it was time to head back to the safety of Monster Town. The journey back was mandatory since you can only enter the town from a specific spot, even if you can leave it from anywhere. Once they arrived, Alicia headed straight for a food stall and grabbed a couple of apples for a quick snack. Kuga stopped her, insisting that he should be the one to pay for the food this time. Alicia was confused by the offer and tried to brush it off, but Kuga was determined to use his earnings to cover the cost. Kuga explains that their streams are finally paying off, bringing in a solid amount of cash through viewer incentives. Alicia has no idea what he means, so Kuga keeps it simple and tells her it is basically just money. In this world, more views translates directly to more profit, making their dungeon adventures surprisingly lucrative. Bro is literally monetizing dungeon crawling. Meanwhile, I'm out here begging y'all to just hit like and subscribe for more. Since he is the one with the extra funds, he insists on covering the bill for their snacks. He admits that without Alicia as the star attraction, the channel would not have any viewers at all. Alicia finally gives in and accepts the offer, though she seems a bit flustered by his sudden sincerity. Most of these earnings are sent as digital currency, so Kuga asks if she can even use an app called Maypay. Having a digital balance is a lifesaver, especially when they find themselves running low on physical cash. Alicia stares back with a blank expression. She has absolutely no idea what Maypay is or how it even works. Kuga explains that they would have to travel all the way to a human town just to withdraw the digital funds. Alicia is clearly not a fan of the extra effort. Since the digital cash is out of reach for now, Kuga changes the subject. He is still curious about a certain detail she mentioned earlier. He asks her to explain the daily allowance she gets. He wants to know the mechanics behind her mysterious daily income. Alicia does not just explain it, she shows him. She reaches into her outfit and pulls out a single paper bill with a smug look. She tells him that 5 of these 1,000 yen bills just manifest in her pocket every single day. It is a weird perk of her existence. Kuga processes the information and realizes she is pulling in 5,000 yen daily. That is a decent amount of spending money for a vampire. Even with her daily cash, Kuga knows they cannot avoid civilization forever. They will eventually need to hit a human town to manage the rest of their earnings. Alicia approaches a stall to grab some snacks, but Kuga quickly steps in to handle the bill. He thanks the vendor, ready to pull out his wallet. Kuga starts apologizing for the delay, assuming the merchant is impatient for the money. However, the vendor stops him, explaining that there is a misunderstanding. The vendor reveals a shocking detail about his business. He tells the duo that they can actually use their digital balance right there at the stall. The reptilian merchant clarifies that his shop officially accepts Maypay. This news completely catches both of them off guard. Kuga and Alicia stare in total disbelief. They never expected a monster vendor in the middle of a dungeon town to have such high-tech payment options. As they complete the transaction, Alicia is absolutely floored by the convenience. She thinks the ability to pay with a phone is basically just another form of magic. Kuga realizes the world is far more modernized than he ever thought. Meanwhile, Alicia decides she needs to study her survival manual to see what other secrets she missed. They continue through the town, still processing how easy it was to spend their streaming earnings. Kuga is left speechless by how fast the world is changing. Kuga admits that compared to Alicia he burns through energy way faster. He needs to refuel because his body is craving iron. Alicia stops and looks at him with a confused expression. She repeats the word iron like it is a foreign concept. Even though she does not understand human biology, she decides to go along with it and agrees to a food break. They find a spot and lay out a massive spread of snacks bought from the monster market. Alicia stares at the mountain of food in total disbelief. She asks if he is actually planning to eat all of that in one sitting. Once Kuga finishes his meal and starts feeling human again, he remembers a detail he missed. He asks Alicia what her secret conversation with the kobold colony was about. She points to her hand to show him the answer. She reveals a special ring. Alicia explains she gave the kobolds a matching one so they can summon her whenever they need help. Kuga stared at her, trying to process the logic. He asked if this was basically just a reverse summoning contract. He wanted to be sure. He asked if this meant the kobolds could now just call her to their side whenever they wanted. Alicia didn't even hesitate. She confirmed that was exactly how the magic worked. Kuga went silent as a realization hit him. At this rate, it looked like Alicia was the one becoming their minion instead of the other way around. Alicia immediately caught his vibe and turned around with a sharp look. She asked if he seriously thought she was that weak to some fluffy fur. Kuga panicked, realizing his face had given him away. He tried to play it cool, but Alicia knew exactly what he was thinking. Alicia sighed, closing her eyes as she admitted that fluffiness was indeed a supreme force in this world. However, she quickly regained her composure. She explained that while she loved the fur, this ring was part of a much bigger strategy. Alicia reveals that the ring is a two-way street. She activates a massive magic circle on the ground, proving she can pull the monsters to her side whenever she wants. Suddenly, a massive, muscular figure manifests from the light. It is the leader of the kobolds, greeting them with a surprisingly polite bark. Kuga is caught completely off guard by the sudden arrival. Alicia casually apologizes, explaining she just needed to confirm the summoning magic actually worked. The beast stands tall, waiting for his next command. Despite his intimidating build, he remains perfectly calm and obedient in front of his new master. Alicia notes that even though the kobolds cannot speak human language, the mental link is strong. They can understand her every word without any issues. She introduces the creature as the official boss of the colony. This guy is the main muscle of the operation and leads the entire pack she just recruited. Since he is now a permanent part of her strategy, Alicia decides he needs a proper name. She pauses for a moment to think of something fitting for a high-ranking minion. The kobold barks again, looking eager to hear his new title. Alicia officially names the boss kobold. The massive creature barks in approval, finally having a title to match his strength. Kuga is not exactly impressed. He asks if she just pulled that name out of nowhere on the spot. Alicia ignores the shade and tells Kobold to take a hike. She explains the summoning was just a quick test to make sure the ring worked. With a final bark, the massive kobold disappears back to the dungeon. Alicia bids him farewell as the magic circle fades away. Kuga admits the ability is pretty broken. Having a boss-level minion on speed dial is a major advantage for their future raids. Alicia clarifies that there is a catch. The summoning magic has a strict cooldown, meaning she can not just call him whenever she feels like it. Kuga nods, realizing they still have to be strategic. It is not a move she can just spam endlessly to solve every problem. Alicia agrees, but she hints that there is more to her plan than just using him for muscle. Alicia explains that the kobolds actually have another important role to play in her master plan. She smiles, looking clearly pleased with how things are turning out. But Kuga has no idea what that secret role is. He would not find out the truth until much later. Back at Alicia's temporary home, things were finally starting to settle down. Alicia calls out to Kuga, clearly having something on her mind. She asks if streaming is something other people do, wondering if they are the only ones. Kuga confirms that live streaming is actually a very common thing for adventurers. Alicia admits she has been getting curious about how other people handle their own broadcasts. She asks if they can watch them, making Kuga realize she wants to study the competition. Alicia gets super excited, shouting that she really wants to see what is out there. Kuga agrees and reaches for the interface, ready to pull up the latest adventure streams. Alicia leans in, her eyes fixed on the interface as she spots a familiar thumbnail. Yeah, Yander, that's it, like and subscribe, Lord of Manga. She points out that one specific channel is live right now, and the name on the screen says Kumazimi. Both of them freeze as the video feed starts to play, showing several figures trekking through a barren wasteland. The camera focuses on a face Kuga knows all too well, though she looks far more stressed than he remembers. Alicia turns to him with a confused look, asking if this is the same group that kicked him out. Kuga can only stare at the screen, confirming that these are indeed his former teammates. This is the first time he has watched a Kumazimi stream since the day they left him behind. He quickly notices that the vibe of the group has shifted, and the biggest change is the man leading them. The party has a brand new member filling Kuga's old spot. It is Priest Cheyenne, a healer whose arrogance is already leaking through the screen. Kuga watches in disbelief, wondering what happened to the team he once knew. The energy of the group feels heavy and suffocating. Yo, thank God our boy, dodge a bullet. Alicia narrows her eyes at the broadcast. She senses a strange tension between the members that goes beyond just a simple strategy change. She turns to Kuga and asks if these are really the same people he used to climb the ranks with. They do not look like a top-tier team anymore. Kuga stares at the interface with a growing sense of doubt. He confirms they are his old friends, but the way they carry themselves is completely different. Alicia points out the obvious flaw. Even though they are moving, the girls look completely lifeless, as if their spirit has been crushed by their new leader. Kuga realizes her observation is spot on. The stream intensifies as a pair of twin skeletons emerge to challenge them. Kumazimi prepares for a fight, but they look more like puppets than adventurers. Sera, from the Kumazimi party, is reaching his limit. He can barely keep his cool as the raid starts to go south. The battlefield is a total mess. Every member of the party is struggling just to stay alive while their formation falls apart. They are currently facing off against 2A-ranked twin skeletons. Even for a top-tier sword saint like Sera, these monsters are a nightmare to handle. Meanwhile, the internal dynamic of the group is becoming toxic. Yulia is clearly losing her patience with the man now calling the shots. Seeing the front line failing, Saintess Yulia offers to step up and take the lead as she usually does to stabilize the fight. However, Priest Sean rejects her immediately. He treats her tactical advice like a total joke and tells her she is making a bad move. Yulia is forced to back down and hold her tongue. She is visibly frustrated by how restrictive and arrogant this new leadership has become. Seinen insists on a rigid strategy. He demands that everyone focus entirely on protecting him, claiming the specialized healer is the only member who actually matters. Sera takes a massive hit, and the party formation begins to completely crumble. Sion finally realizes things are going south and is forced to cast a quick heal. The stream audience is still blinded by his reputation as a disciple of an S-rank party. However, some viewers are starting to complain that the fight is dragging on for way too long. Saintess Yulia is clearly at her breaking point with this toxic and restrictive leadership. She ignores San orders and triggers her Holy Knight buff to rejoin the front line, abandoning the defensive formation to charge the monsters directly. They finally make a move, catching the A-rank skeletons off guard with their sudden aggression. Priest Sean remains dismissive, acting like the chaotic battle is still going exactly according to his plan. He snaps at Yulia to keep her in line. Enchantment Mage Makari tries to de-escalate the situation, suggesting they all just stay calm for now. Sion ignores the tension and calls Makari over as he walks away from the front line. He notes that his enchantments are about to wear off and demands a fresh set of buffs. Makari prepares to cast, intending to prioritize Sera so she can keep the monsters at bay. However, Sion stops her, calling the idea of supporting the front line completely stupid. Makari is left speechless, unable to believe how delusional their new leader actually is. On the live stream, Sion doubles down on his selfish tactics. He reminds the party to stick to the plan and prioritize his safety above everything else. Then, he turns to the camera with a fake smile. He tells the viewers to stop belittling his teammates, putting on a humble act for the audience. He looks back at Yulia and Makari, telling them it is okay to be weak as long as they keep growing. It is a total slap in the face to their years of experience. The live chat is a total war zone. Half the viewers are calling out his hypocrisy, while the other half are blindly defending the arrogant healer. Makari can only grit her teeth and agree for now. She is forced to play along with this ego trip just to survive the raid. Even the party leader, Sera, is starting to hit his limit. The constant condescension from their new member is wearing her down. Back at the dungeon, Kuga and Alicia watch the train wreck in silence. They can see exactly how much the party has fallen apart since Kuga left. Alicia points out Saintess and her expression is total blank. She points out that Saintess was way stronger when they fought back in the dungeon. Kuga can only agree with her. Alicia suddenly realizes there might be a way to help from the sidelines. She points toward the display. She asks Kuga if they are allowed to leave comments on the live broadcast. Kuga tells her it is perfectly fine. He explains that the stream is meant for the audience to interact. Alicia gets excited. She decides that she wants to cheer for the struggling party too. She looks at the interface and asks for the specific way to post a message. Kuga finds her enthusiasm a bit strange. Kuga explains that she can either send a voice message or type a comment to be read aloud. In that moment, he completely forgets one massive detail. Alicia agrees and starts typing away. She has no idea that she is about to send a message using Kuga's own account. The message finally goes through, appearing right in the middle of the live chat. It is a simple cheer, but the name attached to the account is impossible to ignore. Kuga freezes in total shock as he stares at the screen. Alicia is still smiling, completely unaware that she just blew his cover to the entire world. The realization hits him like a ton of bricks. By letting Alicia use his device, he just accidentally outed himself to his former teammate. Back at the raid, the members of Kumazimi come to a dead stop. Even the arrogant priest Cheyenne looks like he just saw a ghost. Yulia turns to Makari with a look of pure disbelief. They are both struggling to process the fact that their banished comrade is actually watching them. The live chat is moving too fast to read as viewers lose their minds. Some recognize Kuga as the failed adventurer, while others bring up the rumors about him hanging out with monsters. Yulia quietly apologizes to Makari, signaling that she is done following orders. The weight of the toxic leadership and Kuga's sudden appearance is finally too much to handle. And then Sarah lunges forward with terrifying speed, leaving his teammates frozen in disbelief. Even the arrogant priest Cheyenne can only gape as the Sword Saint ignores his orders and charges into the fray. He screams at the monsters to stay down as his blade cuts through the air. The twin skeletons never stood a chance against his raw and unfiltered rage. The skulls of the A-rank monsters shatter into a million pieces. Back at the hidden room, Alicia lets out a long sigh of relief. Her cheering actually worked. Kuga and Alicia watch the aftermath from the safety of their room. Despite the victory, the cracks within the party are deeper than they have ever been. Sarah won the fight by switching to a reckless and aggressive style that completely abandoned their formation. It was a desperate move, but the skeletons are finally dead. Kuga stares at the screen, unable to process the chaos he just witnessed. Nothing about this raid followed the path he thought it would. This strange connection between Kuga and the Sword Saint did not happen by accident. The roots of their complicated bond go all the way back to their days in high school. It was the start of their third year, right at the peak of a new school term. This was the moment their paths first crossed under the falling cherry blossoms. In the new classroom, seats were assigned mechanically based on alphabetical order. Kuga was placed in the second row near the back, but the student to his left caught his eye. Kuga already knew everything about Sarah. Even back in high school, Sarah stood out with that bright blonde hair. Sarah was a striking figure who drew attention from everyone, even though dyed hair was against the rules. With top-tier grades and incredible athletic ability, Sarah had a knack for charming the teachers. Because of that, Sarah was always let off with nothing more than a simple verbal warning. His special treatment was basically an unofficial rule. Now that he was sitting right next to him, Kuga felt like a ghost. He was just a quiet background character in her world. Being near him made him incredibly nervous. Out of nowhere, Sarah turned toward him and confirmed his name. He flashed a bright smile and introduced himself. It was the first time he had ever truly spoken to him. Kuga could barely form a sentence. He stumbled over his words as he tried to offer a polite greeting back. As the term went on, it became obvious that Sarah was a massive social butterfly. He was the heart of every conversation in the building. Even so, he treated Kuga like they were already close friends. He would drag him along to the school store as if it was the most natural thing in the world. His infectious energy was slowly starting to rub off on him. For the first time, Kuga began to feel like his outlook on life was changing. He even tried to bring him along for the most basic tasks. Kuga would tell him to just go by herself, but he never seemed to listen. He would constantly ask him to walk home together after school. When he hesitated, she complained that being alone was way too boring. Kuga eventually gave in and agreed to follow his lead. It was a confusing dynamic for everyone else to watch. Sarah was easily the most popular person in the building and had plenty of other friends to choose from. Despite his high status, he spent almost all of his time glued to Kuga's side. They shared a connection that went beyond their social standing, becoming closer than anyone else in their class. The final year of high school flew by in a blink. Eventually, Kuga and Sarah were set to go down completely separate paths. Kuga assumed his connection with him was over, but just before graduation, everything changed. Sarah sent him an unexpected invite to a new group chat. It was a group of about 10 students, filled with all the standout kids from their class. Out of everyone in the group, the only person Kuga had actually talked to was Sarah. Honestly, he felt completely out of place among such popular people. But the other students were surprisingly kind and welcoming as they greeted him. Two of the most famous members in the chat were Yulia and Makari. Yulia was widely known as one of the top beauties in the entire class. It was actually pretty surprising to see her in the group, especially since she usually gave off a distant and unapproachable vibe. Apparently, she and Makari were close friends who spent most of their time together. To the popular kids, this group was likely just one of many social circles they belonged to. But for someone like Kuga, being included in this group felt truly special. One day, a notification popped up from Sarah, asking if anyone in the group wanted to try dungeon streaming to become famous. Kuga hesitated for a moment, but then Sarah reached out to him personally to ask if he would go with him. Kuga quickly agreed to the plan, mostly because he wanted to be there to support Sarah. As soon as Kuga confirmed he was in, Yulia surprisingly decided to follow his lead and join the party too. Makari decided to join the group as well, mainly because she did not want Yulia to be the only girl in the party. Once they officially started streaming their dungeon runs, Kuga realized he was actually having a great time. He could not really explain the feeling, but the dangerous work never felt like a boring chore. Beyond the combat, he started to see completely new sides of Yulia and Makari that he never noticed back in school. During a quiet moment, Sarah casually mentioned that they needed to pick an official channel name soon. Makari chimed in with her usual high energy, clearly excited about the prospect of branding their new team. Sarah looked for input from the rest of the group, asking what kind of name would actually fit their dynamic. Kuga pitched the idea of using one character from everyone's name, a simple concept that the team immediately found charming. They tried to brainstorm a name by combining the first syllables of their names. See Miku and Yu. It was the starting point for their new identity. Sarah looked at the team, wondering if there was any way to mash those sounds into a word that actually made sense. He wanted something that would stand out to viewers. Sarah turned to Kuga, asking if he had any bright ideas. He did not have anything prepared, but a specific word started to form in his mind. Finally, he spoke up. The closest thing he could think of that used all their initials was Kumazimi. Sarah loved the suggestion immediately. He noted that they would have to stretch the sounds a little bit to make it work, but the vibe was perfect. Sarah did not need any more convincing. He was fine with the name, but he still needed to check if their final member was on board. Yulia looked at Kuga with a soft expression. She told him that if the idea came from him, she was more than happy to accept it. And just like that, their channel name was chosen on a total whim. It was a simple moment that would lead to both their greatest fame and their eventual downfall. As they started streaming every day, Sarah's natural charisma and looks immediately grabbed everyone's attention. Makari added her own brand of flirtatious energy to the mix, drawing in even more viewers, while Yulia's mysterious beauty and surprising personality quickly won over the rest of the fans. It was a slow process, but the Kumazimi channel eventually reached the milestone of 1,000 subscribers. What began as a simple joke about becoming famous was turning into a real goal, and Kuga refused to let that dream die. He started working harder than anyone behind the scenes, making the success of the team his entire purpose. He pushed his body to the limit every single day just to improve his basic physical stats. He even spent his nights studying advanced combat theories to make sure he was never the one holding them back. Besides the books, Kuga threw himself into constant weapon training to sharpen his combat skills. For the first time in his life, he was fully committed to a goal. The grind often felt overwhelming and left his hands bloody, but he refused to stop. He wanted to make sure his teammates stayed safe so nobody ever had to retire from the group. That single motivation was the only thing that kept him pushing forward. This dedication was put to the test during the party's first B-rank mission against a massive orc. The fight was far more brutal than they anticipated, leaving the entire team exhausted. But after a long and desperate struggle, they finally managed to corner the monster. In a final act of desperation, the cornered orc summoned every bit of its remaining strength. It hurled its massive axe with enough force to shatter stone, catching the party completely off guard. Sarah had been holding the front line at close range, but he completely misjudged the distance. The monster's sudden and violent move left him wide open with no time to react. In that split second, Kuga moved. Back then, he was still just a basic warrior, but he did not hesitate to throw his own body in front of the blade to shield Sarah from the impact. The force of the hit was devastating. As Kuga collapsed to the ground, his teammates watched in horror, truly believing they had just witnessed his final moments. The sight was gruesome. The wound in his abdomen was so deep that survival seemed impossible, leaving a dark trail of blood across the cold dungeon floor. This moment exposed the one fatal flaw that had always plagued the Kumazimi party. They were a group of talented specialists with a massive gap in their team composition. The reality hit them all at once. They did not have a healer to stop the bleeding or mend the damage, leaving them helpless as their friend's life slipped away. Despite the danger, nobody ever suggested bringing in someone new or changing members. They all knew deep down that none of them had the aptitude for healing magic, but their bond was more important than their survival. But that unspoken bond was exactly what led them toward a total disaster at a critical moment. Just as things looked hopeless, something happened. Kuga's jobstone began to glow with a brilliant light while he lay on the ground. He survived against all odds. Kuga had officially awakened as a hero. The very first thing he did with his new power was cast a spell to heal himself. In an instant, the fatal wound vanished as if it were never there. The team were stunned. Kumazimi finally had the one thing they were missing, a healer. They pulled him into a tearful hug, relieved that their friend was still alive and well. Kuga just smiled. He was happy as long as he had the power to protect his team. But that joy was short-lived. It was the moment Kumazimi officially gained a half-baked healer. As the team reached new heights, Kuga started to feel like a burden. He eventually convinced himself he was the only thing holding them back. That was the heavy reality Kuga lived with every day. He saw himself as a failure even when he was their only hope. The scene shifts to the present, deep within the heart of the monster city, a place where stone buildings stretched high into the cloudy sky. Kuga was clearly lost in thought, his eyes fixed on the ground until the vampire boss called out his name. Alicia leaned in close, immediately noticing the heavy vibe he was giving off. She asked him what was up, since it was obvious he was worried about something. He tried to play it cool, giving a half-hearted excuse that it was nothing. He just was not ready to admit how much his insecurities were still weighing on him. Alicia did not buy it for a second. She marched ahead, telling him to pull himself together and keep moving because they had work to do. Even their stream viewers were starting to notice his mood. A notification popped up on the screen from a fan telling Kuga that he could do it. The support only made him more embarrassed. It turned out an accidental message from the day before was still haunting him, and the chat was not going to let him forget it. Their awkward walk was cut short when they both spotted someone familiar up ahead. It looked like they had just stumbled onto something unexpected in the middle of the street. It was Mino-chan, the high-ranking S-rank boss who lived right here in the Monster City. The stream chat immediately blew up with hype, wondering if this was the start of a legendary collaboration. Alicia called out to her friend with a wave, but the greeting sent Mino-chan into a complete panic. The Minotaur breathed a sigh of relief when she realized it was just them. Alicia could tell something was off, noting how incredibly jumpy her friend was acting. Mino-chan tried to play it off as nothing, but her trembling voice told a different story. She was clearly trying to hide her distress, but it was not working. Alicia was not buying the act for a second. She leaned in, telling Mino-chan straight up that her face was giving everything away. The pressure was too much, and Mino-chan started spiraling. She kept insisting everything was fine, but her eyes were practically spinning from the stress. Even Kuga could see the obvious truth while the stream viewers had a field day in the comments. They thought her nervous breakdown was the most adorable thing they had ever seen. Alicia refused to drop it and stepped closer to her friend. She wanted Mino-chan to open up because friends do not keep secrets when they are in trouble. Alicia stood her ground and reminded her friend that they were in this together. Mino-chan looked like she was about to crumble under the pressure of her own secrets. After a long silence, the Minotaur finally nodded. She realized she could not carry this weight alone anymore. She took a deep breath, preparing to say the words she had been holding back for far too long. The stream chat was blowing up with anticipation. Thousands of viewers watched as the atmosphere in the street turned heavy. Mino-chan finally confessed that she was being stalked. The admission was quiet, but the gravity of the situation hit everyone immediately. The viewers were instantly outraged at the idea of someone targeting her. They demanded to know who would be brave enough to harass such a gentle person. Kuga stood there stunned, his mind racing as he processed the news. The chat was already cheering for him to go on the offensive and find the culprit. Alicia was the most shocked of all. She could not believe her ears and demanded to hear every single detail about the creep following her friend. Alicia declared the situation absolutely unforgivable. No one was going to mess with her friend while she was around. She reached out to reassure her, telling Mino-chan not to worry because they were handling it. Alicia was already planning their counterattack, vowing to drive the stalker off herself. The Minotaur was stunned, asking if they were really serious about helping her with such a dangerous problem. Alicia gave a confident smile, promising that they absolutely would protect her. Mino-chan finally let out a breath she had been holding, feeling like she could finally return home without looking over her shoulder. As the trio moved through the city, she explained that this creepy feeling had been haunting her for days. The situation had peaked today, forcing her to run toward the busiest street she could find to hide in the crowd. Kuga watches the gentle giant and wonders why she does not just use her massive strength. He thinks smashing the problem with her giant axe would be way faster. The livestream viewers are usually bloodthirsty, but they are not feeling that vibe today. No one suggests violence because they are completely heartbroken for the gentle boss. The group decides to get off the streets and head to a safer location. It does not take long for them to arrive at Mino-chan's personal residence. Her house is a massive version of Alicia's place, sitting at nearly 3 times the size. Mino-chan rushes straight to her backyard, finally feeling a sense of relief. She grabs a watering can and gets straight to work. The panic of being followed made her forget her most important daily chore. These plants are her pride and joy. She has been raising them with so much care that the thought of them dying was causing her serious stress. According to her, these vegetables are extremely sensitive. Even missing a single day of watering could cause the whole crop to wilt. Alicia watches as the stream chat turns into a support group for the monster boss. No one wants to hunt her anymore because they just want to see her succeed. Alicia called out to Mino-chan as they reached the edge of the property. The Minotaur was still trembling, her eyes darting around the garden she loved so much. Mino-chan suddenly stopped, her breath catching as she sensed a terrifying aura. This presence was way stronger than anything the group had felt before. Alicia turned to Kuga and told him they needed to search outside the garden first. She was determined to flush out whoever was hiding in the brush. She reassured her friend, telling her to stick close because she was safer with them than alone. The giant monster could only offer a small, nervous nod in response. That was when the stalker finally showed his face. A massive creature watched them from the fence line, his eyes locked onto the group with intense focus. The livestream viewers immediately recognized the monster as the new S-rank boss, the werewolf. He had just recently been promoted to fill the spot left by the salamander. Alicia was shocked to see a top-tier boss acting like a common creep. She checked the stream info as the viewers confirmed this guy was the real deal. The official list of S-rank bosses appeared, showing the werewolf right there next to the Minotaur and the Basilisk. This gentle garden visit had just turned into a high-level confrontation. Alicia confronts the intruder directly, demanding to know what he wants with Mino-chan. The werewolf maintains a calm face, claiming he was only watching over her to make sure she did not get hurt. Alicia is momentarily stunned, questioning if this whole thing was just a big misunderstanding. However, the vibe turns dark as he insists that he is the only one truly worthy of protecting her. Mino-chan is not feeling protected at all, visibly shaking from the terrifying pressure he is putting out. Alicia calls him out for being a total stranger, but he just laughs it off and says her fear is actually cute. The livestream chat is blowing up with warnings, realizing they are dealing with a top-level stalker. Instead of feeling guilty, the werewolf acts like he is the victim, wondering why his target is acting so distant. Mino-chan is absolutely floored by his sheer audacity. The werewolf cannot wrap his head around her choices, questioning why she would ever want to associate with humans. He doubles down, claiming that mingling with lesser beings will only disgrace her S-rank status and ruin her natural beauty. This is the final straw for Mino-chan, who finally snaps and tells him to stop badmouthing her friends. Alicia and Kuga can only watch from the sidelines as the gentle giant finally finds her voice. Instead of listening, the werewolf keeps up his condescending act, telling her that everything is fine. He is convinced she is just too kind for her own good, and that the humans have clearly brainwashed her. He starts rambling about their first meeting at a flower shop, and a notification warns the group that his delusional monologue has officially begun. The group is forced to sit through a massive lore dump about the werewolf's imaginary romance. He just keeps going, making everyone endure his creepy and unwanted life story. Finally, the stalker decides to call it a day. He promises Mino-chan that they will meet again, trying to sound cool while acting like a total creep. Mino-chan stands there in shock, unable to believe someone could be that delusional. The pressure he left behind is still weighing heavily on her. The livestream chat is absolutely roasting the guy. The viewers are calling out his weird behavior, finding the entire situation both hilarious and pathetic. A glowing magic circle appears on the ground. The werewolf steps into the light and teleports away, finally ending the awkward confrontation for now. Alicia stays silent for a long moment before calling out to Kuga. Her vibe is completely shifted, showing that she is done playing around with this guy. She suddenly announces that she has made a final decision. Kuga can only stare in confusion, waiting for her to explain whatever crazy plan she is cooking up. Alicia declares that they are going to track down that stalker. She is not just going to stop him, she is going to turn that werewolf into her new minion. Alicia is all in, but Kuga is definitely not feeling the same energy. He is already dreading the idea of charging headfirst into a high-level conflict. They reach the target destination under the glow of a full moon. Looming ahead of them is a massive Gothic structure surrounded by dense shadows. Alicia confirms that they have found the right place. This is the werewolf's castle, located deep within the 45th floor. The group makes their way into the dungeon, descending to the 45th underground level. The pressure in the air is getting heavier with every step. Alicia is already sprinting up the stairs, fueled by pure spite. The livestream chat is loving her energy, calling her a total go-getter. Kuga follows right behind her, acting much more cautious than his boss. The viewers point out that the werewolf probably has no idea an ambush is coming today. This is a massive jump in difficulty for the duo. It is the very first time they are actively hunting an S-rank boss on his own turf. Even with Alicia's confidence, Kuga cannot shake his growing sense of dread. He honestly wonders if they are even strong enough to survive this encounter. Alicia charges up the main staircase, noting that the entrance is completely unguarded. They burst through the massive doors, but they are definitely not alone. The werewolf guards are caught completely off guard by the sudden intruders. When the guards demand to know who they are, Alicia calmly introduces herself as a vampire. She does not waste time with pleasantries, declaring her intent to turn their leader into her personal minion. The guards immediately brand her a traitor and scramble to defend their master. Before they can even draw their weapons, Alicia unleashes a wave of magical spikes that shreds the front line. Alicia watches them fall, casually gauging the defensive power of the castle. Alicia realizes the werewolf guards have the advantage in numbers. It is time to even the playing field. She decides to drop the formalities and tap into her real power. The atmosphere in the castle hall shifts instantly. A massive magic circle erupts beneath her feet, glowing with intense energy. The livestream viewers are losing their minds, waiting to see what she is about to pull off. Suddenly, a horde of her loyal Shiba minions floods the room. Led by Wano, the squad is ready to cause total chaos for the castle guards. The Shiba squad has officially entered the chat. The livestream viewers are already going crazy over how cute these new arrivals look. The werewolf guards are completely confused. They have no idea if they are facing a serious threat or just some weird summoning magic. Alicia stands before the group as their leader reveals his name is Wano. His deep voice catches everyone off guard. Kuga steps in to offer his help. He tells Alicia that he is going to provide full support for the upcoming battle. Alicia locks in and gives the command to attack. She wants her squad to take down every guard in the room. Kuga unleashes a massive wave of magic. He focuses all his energy into strengthening his new allies. The effects of the buff are immediate. Wano looks like a completely different beast as he prepares to tear through the opposition. Kuga can hardly believe his own eyes. The sheer amount of power he just handed his squad is absolutely insane. Kobo looks at his hands, feeling the massive surge of strength. He tells Kuga that receiving this much power is an honor beyond words. Kuga is completely stunned. He was not prepared for the squad leader to actually speak, especially not with a voice like that. The livestream chat is blowing up. Everyone is obsessed with how cool and deep the monster's voice sounds. Alicia tries to stay focused on the mission. She calls out to Kobo, telling him that she is counting on his squad to clear the path. The monster stops her right there. He has one final request before they charge into the heart of the castle. He tells her that his old name is officially dead. From this moment on, he will be known only as Wano. Alicia is visibly flustered by the sudden name change. She stammers out a quick apology, feeling a bit awkward about her mistake. Wano turns to his soldiers and gives the order to attack. They are going to repay their master's kindness with total victory. The Shiba squad lets out a massive battle cry as they charge into the fray. The livestream chat is exploding with hype over these powerful new minions. Alicia sees the opening and prepares to move while the guards are distracted. She tells Kuga they should leave the squad to handle the entrance and head deeper inside. Kuga is surprised by the sudden change in pace but quickly tries to keep up. They sprint up the long castle stairs toward the heart of the enemy territory. Alicia kicks open the doors and finds a mysterious figure waiting on a sofa. She greets the werewolf boss with a confident smile, ready to end this conflict once and for all. The werewolf lets out a sinister laugh. He admits he never expected her to just walk right into his trap. He is done playing games. He declares that he will finally eliminate Alicia for trying to steal his precious Mino-chan. The livestream viewers are already picking sides. They start arguing in the comments over who the Minotaur actually belongs to. Kuga senses something is off. He notices someone else in the room and wonders what is going on. Tucked away in the corner is a young girl bound in heavy chains. The chat is flooded with questions about the identity of this mysterious wanderer. Alicia is immediately repulsed by the sight. When she demands to know who the girl is, the werewolf brushes it off as a simple hobby. Alicia calls him out for his disgusting behavior. She asks if he plans to keep this girl locked up just like he did with Mino-chan. The werewolf panics and tries to explain himself. He insists that this situation is different because the girl is special. Alicia has no interest in the werewolf's excuses. She orders Kuga to grab the captive girl and get out while she covers their escape. Kuga checks if she is really okay with taking this fight solo. Alicia does not even flinch as she prepares her magic. She is determined to end this right now. Alicia is going to handle the werewolf boss her own way. Kuga agrees and turns his attention to the girl. She looks up at him, still clearly shaken by her time in chains. Kuga promises to come back as soon as he finds a safe spot for her. The girl stares at him in awe, touched by his genuine concern. Kuga makes a break for it as Alicia faces down her opponent. Both fighters are convinced they are about to win this duel. They sprint through the empty halls of the castle, leaving the sound of battle behind them. Kuga slows down to check if the girl is doing all right. She responds with a small nod, feeling safer than she has in a long time. Kuga checks on the captive girl and is relieved she can still speak. Seeing her tattered clothes and young age, he feels bad for her. He gestures for her to follow him to safety. She gives a quiet response and prepares to leave the cell behind. Elsewhere in the hall, Alicia is busy trashing the fake werewolf boss. The decoy is struggling to keep up with her speed. The livestream chat is blowing up. They are obsessed with watching a high-rank monster versus monster showdown. Viewers call it a villain versus villain fight, and the hype is through the roof. Alicia continues her relentless assault. The fake boss can only growl in frustration as he gets pushed back. She moves in for the kill. The decoy is completely wide open. Alicia lands a massive blow, sending the werewolf flying back. The impact is heavy. He hits the floor with enough force to shatter the stone beneath him. The fake boss can barely move, groaning in pain as the livestream chat loses their minds. Viewers start theorizing that Alicia might be stronger than every other S-class boss in the game. Even with those theories, her performance is on another level. She is not even breaking a sweat. Alicia casually approaches her fallen opponent while the stream crowns her as their new vampire queen. She stares him down, completely unimpressed. She tells him straight to his face that he is surprisingly weak. The chat is stunned by how easily she is dominating the encounter. She is treating an S-rank threat like a total joke. Alicia looms over her fallen opponent. She asks if he is actually the S-rank boss they were hunting. The werewolf begins to laugh. He mocks her, asking when he ever claimed to be the true leader. The decoy points out that Kuga has been gone for far too long. Alicia realizes she just fell for a trap. Back with Kuga, the livestream viewers are losing it. They can tell the hero is in serious danger. The girl breaks the silence. She asks Kuga if he is familiar with the game called Werewolf. Kuga says he has heard of it but never played. He wonders why she sounds so confident all of a sudden. The girl lets out a sinister smile. She begins to explain how the game is actually played. She looks away, sounding cold. She says it seems she did not know all the rules herself. In the game of werewolf, a monster hides among humans during the day. Then, it strikes the villagers when night falls. She leans in, her voice sounding strangely playful. She gets his attention one last time. Kuga senses the shift in the air. He looks at her, wondering why a rescued girl would sound so confident. She tells him to listen carefully because the real game is finally about to begin. With a bright smile, she drops the act. She reveals that she is actually the S-Class werewolf boss. Kuga is left completely stunned. Elsewhere in the castle, Alicia is on the move. She is desperately searching for Kuga, worried that she left him alone for too long. She managed to beat the decoy werewolf into the ground. He will be down for a while, but the real threat is still out there. Alicia bursts into the hall with a frustrated click of her tongue. She realizes she fell for a trap and needs to find Kuga before it is too late. Alicia finally spots Kuga and calls out his name. The livestream chat is already moving on. One viewer even jokes about taking Kuga's spot next to the girls. The rest of the audience is in total shock. They cannot believe an S-Class boss was won over by such a simple act of kindness. Alicia stands there trembling in complete silence. She finally finds her voice. She demands to know exactly what the girl just said. Alicia lunges forward with a sudden dash. She moves fast to close the distance between them. She stops short, looking completely stunned by the situation. The livestream chat starts blowing up again. The viewers are just happy to see that Kuga is still alive. Alicia finally finds her voice and screams out Kuga's name. She is visibly panicked after realizing she fell for the decoy's trap and left him alone. Kuga turns around with a completely blank expression. He is totally unfazed by the chaos and asks Alicia why she is making such a stressed-out face. Alicia does not have time for his attitude and points a finger toward the captive. She screams for him to watch out, because that girl is actually the real S-rank werewolf. Kuga just blinks. He gives a lazy response, admitting that he already heard the news directly from the source. Alicia is left completely speechless. She can only let out a small gasp as her brain tries to process how Kuga is still standing there so casually next to a monster. Kuga scratches his head, explaining that the girl came clean about her identity a few minutes ago. Alicia stands in the background, wondering how on earth she missed the most important part of the raid. The livestream chat shifts their focus back to the monster girl. Now that the immediate danger has passed, the viewers are starting to notice that the S-rank boss is actually pretty cute. One viewer claims they knew she was a beauty from the very start. Even the skeptics in the chat have to agree that her human form is top tier. The werewolf girl blushes as she repeats Kuga's offer. Apparently, she thinks he wants her to join his kin. Kuga immediately tries to set the record straight. He insists he has said this a dozen times and that Alicia was actually the one who made the offer. The girl does not seem to care about the details or the confusion. She simply stares back and confirms that she has already agreed to the deal. She stands there with a blank stare, unable to believe her target was won over so easily. The livestream chat is having a field day with the situation. One viewer asks if Kuga was born under a lucky star that makes every monster girl fall for him. Alicia finally loses her cool and starts screaming in total confusion. She cannot wrap her head around how fast the S-rank boss changed her mind. However, the mood in the chat takes a dark turn. An angry viewer calls Kuga a traitor and promises to handle the situation personally. Alicia desperately asks why the boss would ever agree to follow him. The werewolf girl just looks away, knowing her heart is already set on staying with Kuga. The werewolf girl finally breaks the silence. She tells Alicia that she chose Kuga because he was simply kind to her. Alicia can only let out a confused gasp as she tries to process the answer. The girl looks back on the chaos of the castle raid. She remembers the exact moment Kuga rescued her from her heavy chains and led her to safety. While Alicia was busy fighting a decoy, Kuga was treating the captive like a human being. He kept asking her if she was okay and telling her not to worry. For an S-rank monster, this was a life-changing experience. She admits that this was the very first time in her entire life that anyone had ever spoken to her with such genuine warmth. Alicia is stunned. She has never heard anything so sincere in her entire life. Kuga just sighs. He reminds her that most people do not find themselves in this kind of sentimental situation twice. Alicia stops moving. Her brain is clearly struggling to keep up with the conversation. She slowly nods, realizing he actually has a point. Meanwhile, the live stream chat is going wild. They notice Alicia has gone silent and start predicting that someone is about to get killed. Alicia starts to wonder if she should act more vulnerable. She thinks maybe pretending to be weak is the secret to getting Kuga attention. But the chat reacts immediately. One viewer threatens to unsubscribe, and another says they are leaving for good. Alicia loses her cool and screams at the screen. She tells her viewers to stop making things up and stay in their lane. Alicia can barely get her words out. She stumbles over her explanation, trying to clarify that this weird situation was not what she intended at all. The toxic fans in the chat are already losing it. They start calling the monster girl a parasite and threatening to unsubscribe while the White Wolf boss murmurs his sister's name in disbelief. The werewolf boss glares at the girl, asking if she is still not satisfied after causing all this trouble. Alicia watches the interaction, finally realizing that the two monsters are actually related. The livestream chat explodes with shock. Nobody expected the terrifying S-rank boss to have a little sister, and the revelation leaves Alicia feeling completely overwhelmed by the chaos. Viewers start comparing the two monsters in the comments. They note that the family resemblance is actually pretty obvious once you look past the girl's human form. A comment pops up confirming that Gray is the girl's name. She stands there quietly, waiting for her brother to react to her sudden betrayal of the pack. The White Wolf boss demands to know what exactly is going on. He cannot understand why his own sister is suddenly acting like a submissive minion to a human hero. Gray hesitates, clutching her dress as she prepares to face her brother's confusion. She calls out to him, desperate to make him understand her new bond with Kuga. Gray steps forward with a confession that changes everything. She has finally found her destined one. She does not hesitate. She announces that she is officially becoming Kuga's new minion. Alicia and the werewolf boss are frozen in shock. Her brother wonders if a head injury is making him hallucinate the entire conversation. He tries to process the words, but his brain is short-circuiting. Meanwhile, Gray is already clinging to Kuga like he is her entire world. The werewolf boss finally snaps. He asks his sister if she has completely lost her mind. Gray ignores the shouting. She grips Kuga's arm and says he is just too kind for her to leave. Looking up at him with total devotion, she reveals the truth. It was love at first sight. Her brother can only gasp in horror. The idea of his sister falling for a human is his worst nightmare come true. The White Wolf boss is in total damage control mode. He begs his sister to snap out of it, warning her that love at first sight is a total trap. He even tries to paint Kuga as a toxic red flag just to save her from the human. The livestream chat is having a field day with the irony. Her brother demands to know if Kuga even likes her back, or if she is just projecting a one-sided fantasy onto the poor guy. It turns out the stalker energy runs in the family. While Grete gushes about her new destiny, the viewers realize she is just like her brother who fell for the Minotaur girl the same way. The fans start feeling sorry for Kuga because he keeps attracting the most intense monsters. Gray does not care about logic or her brother's opinion. She clings to Kuga's arm and tells her sibling to buzz off because his blessing is not required. The White Wolf can only watch his little sister choose a human over her own blood. With her mind made up, she looks at the group with pure determination. She asks the million-dollar question, wondering if she can officially call herself Kuga's minion now. Alicia takes a long moment to process the chaos. She looks at the awkward scene before her, weighing the options. Having an S-class minion under her command through Kuga would actually solve her rank promotion problems. Both girls look up at Kuga with expectant eyes. The atmosphere shifts from a tense battle to a weirdly domestic negotiation as they wait for his final word on the matter. Alicia finally caves and accepts the deal. The monster girl is thrilled, asking Kuga to summon her at least twice a day for any reason at all. Kuga can only offer a confused response, realizing his quiet life is officially over. Alicia takes a moment to process the situation. She is trying to figure out how to turn this chaos into a win for her career. She pulls out her boss manual to check the requirements for an S-class promotion. Alicia realizes that since the werewolf boss wants to serve Kuga, she can technically claim the girl as her own minion to check off a major goal. Kuga is left wondering if the ranking system is really supposed to be that flexible. He is starting to feel a little concerned about her leadership as they move forward with their plan. Back at Alicia's temporary home, a notification pops up for a new stream from the Kumazimi party. Alicia is instantly interested and says she wants to watch the broadcast. Kuga gives in and tunes into the live video. Alicia wonders what the priest who kicked Kuga out is up to today. Kuga admits he is actually a little curious about his former party himself. The stream shows the group trekking through a jagged and dangerous-looking crystal field. Sion tells his viewers that the plan for today is to mine materials for a staff upgrade. He finishes the intro by saying he is not expecting to see any serious combat during this trip. Sion starts the broadcast by acknowledging that their last stream was a bit of a mess due to poor coordination. He boasts that the girls have been training hard under his guidance to make sure they are finally in sync as a team. According to him, they are doing just fine now, so the audience should just relax and watch them work. The chat is split, with some loyal fans calling him amazing while others still feel uneasy about the group. Sion gets serious and mentions how he was the only one to make it out alive after his previous party hit a wall during a boss fight. His followers quickly agree, claiming that his old teammates were decent but Sion was just in a league of his own. Even with all the praise, some people in the comments cannot help but feel worried about the safety of this new squad. He tells the viewers he appreciates the love, but he asks them to stop badmouthing his teammates, past or present. Sion continues to play the hero for the cameras. The livestream chat is eating it up, calling him a saint while he promises to carry his party all the way to S rank. But the smug priest has no idea he just walked into a trap. A high-pitched beep echoes through the cave as a hidden mechanism triggers right beneath his feet. The viewers are still cheering, completely unaware of the looming danger. They promise to back him up no matter what happens next. Seinen gives a humble wave to his fans, thanking them for the support. He is far too busy soaking up the fame to notice the air turning cold. Suddenly, a strange rustling sound catches his attention. He looks around the dark cavern, noticing thick white strands appearing out of nowhere. Before he can even react, a massive trap erupts from a magic circle on the floor. It is spider silk, and it is designed to catch anything that breathes. The priest is snatched in an instant. He lets out a choked gasp as the webs wrap around his body and drag him into the shadows. The livestream goes into a total meltdown. The viewers are screaming for answers while his party members realize their leader has been abducted right in front of them. A massive web trap erupts from the magic circle, ensnaring the arrogant priest as his team watches in total horror. Sarah can hardly believe his eyes as the situation spirals out of control in an instant. She realizes too late that this is a specialized warp trap, a snare designed to teleport victims deep into the dungeon. Before anyone can move, a blinding flash of light consumes Sean as he vanishes from the cavern. Reality finally sets in, and Sarah screams that their leader has been snatched by a teleportation gate. The rest of the party is paralyzed with fear, knowing that a trap like this only leads to one place. They finally connect the dots and realize they have just walked into the lair of the legendary Arakeen. This is the domain of an S-rank boss, and the mission just turned into a fight for survival. This trap is a literal death sentence. It warps anyone caught in it directly into the nest of the S-rank boss, Arakan. Countless adventurers have already met their end in this very spot. The reality of the situation hits the group like a truck. Shine is gone, and there is no doubt he was sent straight into that spider's lair. The livestream chat is reaching a fever pitch. Fans are screaming at the screen, demanding the party moves faster to save their leader. Sarah can feel the toxic pressure of the audience watching his every move. He knows there is only one choice left. Without looking back, Sarah gives the order for the team to move out. They step into the center of the magic circle to trigger the teleport. A massive mass of spider silk looms over them like a warning of what is to come. The party tightens their grip on their weapons. They have to stay focused if they want to make it out of this dungeon alive. The floor erupts in a blinding flash of light. The warp sequence is complete, dragging the three girls deep into the darkness. They finally arrive on the 45th underground floor. This is the lair of the S-rank boss Arachne, and the hunt has officially begun. The reality of the situation finally sets in. They are standing right in the middle of the legendary Arakeen's nest. Retreat is no longer an option. The only exit has been completely sealed off by thick, impenetrable layers of spider silk. A chilling voice echoes through the cavern. The party realizes they are no longer alone in this dark tomb. The S-rank boss Arachne reveals herself. She looks at the group like they are nothing more than a lucky haul of fresh meat. She does not wait for a formal challenge. Arachne lunges from the ceiling with the speed of a professional killer. The party can barely track her movements. Her overwhelming presence is enough to make even the strongest warriors freeze in place. The livestream chat is exploding with total panic. Thousands of viewers are watching what looks like the final moments of Kumazimi. Sion tries to maintain his smug persona for the cameras. He claims he will handle this by the book, but the viewers notice a familiar name appearing in the stream comments. Arachne does not give them a second to breathe. She descends on the party like a nightmare made of silk and shadow. Makari quickly casts a defense boost to protect the team. A system notification confirms the buff is active, but the mage knows this is not enough. The cavern shakes as the boss slams her legs into the ground like massive spears. The force of the attack sends shockwaves through the entire room. Yulia charges forward and lands a direct hit with her blade. The livestream chat explodes with excitement, thinking the Saintess has turned the tide. The celebration is short-lived. Yulia realizes her attack did almost no damage, and the toxic viewers are already complaining about the lack of action from Shion. Arachne lunges again with terrifying speed. Yulia is the only one standing in her way, trying desperately to hold the line against the monster. The S-rank boss is a wall of pure malice. She towers over the group, her massive limbs ready to tear through their flimsy defenses. The pressure is becoming too much. Yulia is pushed to her limit while Sion watches from the back, his smug confidence replaced by total cowardice. Sion finally tries to save face. He triggers his top-tier auto-heal spell to stay in the game. The livestream chat erupts with excitement as the spell lands. At the same time, Makari casts Acceleration to boost the party agility. The viewers are quick to praise Makari. They know her support magic is the only thing keeping them alive. The fans are hopeful. They believe the speed boost might actually give Sarah a fighting chance. But the toxic comments never stop. Backseat gamers are already arguing that the strategy is a total amateur move. High above the group, a predatory smile grows. The monster has seen enough to understand their plan. Arachne narrows her eyes as she pinpoints the source of the healing. She has identified the heart of the team. The S-rank boss prepares to lunge. She knows the golden rule of combat is to always take out the healer first. Arachne explains that against a human party, the smart move is to always target the healer first. She knows the standard monster instincts won't work against a coordinated group. The boss unleashes a massive wave of dark energy that covers the entire room. She screams that picking them off one by one is a waste of time and plans to wipe them all out at once. The floor erupts as lethal spikes of silk tear through the air toward the support casters. Yulia reacts instantly and throws herself in front of the priest to block the incoming strike. The force of the blow is overwhelming. Yulia is slammed into the ground and left paralyzed with fear. Seinen does not even check on her. He just screams for her to keep covering him while he tries to save his own skin. Yulia steps into the line of fire. She takes the full force of the blow intended for the priest. Her grip tightens as the impact rattles her entire body. Seinen breathes a massive sigh of relief. He casually thanks the saintess for her sacrifice while the force of the attack sends her flying backward. Makari watches the scene with a sinking feeling in her gut. The horror of their situation is finally starting to feel real. The support mage quickly checks to see if Cheyenne is still standing. She is relieved he is safe, but the rest of the team is already scattered across the floor. The momentary relief is cut short. A dark shadow looms behind the group with a sadistic grin. Arakin asks them if they really thought escape was an option. Before anyone can move, sticky silk wraps around Yulia. The boss mocks them for thinking she would only target one person at a time. The saintess is pinned to the ground and completely immobilized. In a moment of pure desperation, she calls out for Kuga, the man they once threw away. The rest of the team can only watch in terror. Arakin drags her new prize into the darkness as the party is picked apart one by one. The stream viewers are losing their minds as they watch the carnage. The chat is flooded with people calling the raid a total disaster. Makari tries to plead with the audience. She tells them not to blame Yulia. But the fans are quick to point out that she was never meant to be a tank. The viewers are already losing hope. They believe this is the end for the saintess they once loved. The comment section is turning into a war zone. People are arguing that Yulia would have survived if she had not been protecting the healer. Sarah finally snaps and goes on the offensive. He ignores the chat and charges in with a desperate cry. The Sword Saint delivers a massive blow that should have ended the fight. He cuts deep into the monster. However, the boss just gives a sadistic smile. Arakin mockingly asks if she made a mistake. Sarah stares in absolute shock. The monster is healing instantly. This is the power of S-rank regeneration. Arakin releases a massive wave of dark energy that covers the entire room. The strike hits with enough force to shatter their defense instantly. The boss wears a sadistic grin as she closes in on her prey. She knows the standard monster instincts won't work, so she plays with them instead. Makari looks toward the priest in total desperation. She can feel the line of defense falling apart as their formation breaks. Lethal spikes of silk tear through the air toward the support casters. Yulia is snatched up and dragged into the shadows before she can even blink. The support mage is pinned to the ground and left paralyzed with fear. The live stream viewers are losing their minds as they watch the raid fall apart. The fans are begging for Sarah to do something. Seinen can barely stand as he realizes his entire front line has been wiped out. He was never prepared for a real fight without his meat shields. The chat is demanding a heal that is never going to come. Seinen is already looking for an exit, planning to leave his comrades behind to save his own skin. The chat is flooding with messages for him to hurry up, but Seinen is already hitting his limit. He blames his party members for the mess, thinking they are just dead weight dragging him down. But then, he sees something that shouldn't be possible. The massive door to the lair is starting to open. The mechanism was designed so it could never be opened from the inside, but someone is forcing it from the outside. Without a second thought for his captured team, the priest turns his back on them and runs for the light. He thinks he has been handed a 1 in a million chance to escape this death trap. As he flees, the stream viewers finally realize he is ditching his comrades to save his own skin. San screams that he is too special to die in a place like this, only to run directly into Kugo at the exit. Seinen crashes to the ground, his face meeting the floor before he can even process what he hit. Standing in the doorway is Kuga, the very man he once looked down on. The priest is paralyzed with shock as the jack of all trades looms over him like a shadow. This isn't just a rescue, it is a reckoning. Kuga stands over the pathetic priest like a silent judge. Seinen can only let out a sound of pure frustration. Seinen snaps and starts screaming. He demands to know why Kuga is closing the only exit to the room. The live stream viewers are just as confused. They can only watch as the screen flickers during the chaos. The priest finally looks up and sees the face of the man he once mocked. He is completely frozen by the sight. The comment section explodes with excitement. The fans never expected Kuga to actually show up to this suicide mission. Kuga does not waste a single second on talk. He draws his weapon and charges directly at the massive boss. Arachne is stunned as she feels the party limit break. She cannot understand how a fifth person entered her web. Kuga remains silent as he prepares his next move. The salvation skill has officially swapped their fates. This sudden turn of events was all thanks to a legendary hero skill called Salvation. It is a rare power that allows someone to swap into a raid even when the 4-person party limit is reached. Basically, it is a forced trade that instantly switches the positions of 2 people. Kuga triggered the skill and jumped straight into the boss room, appearing exactly where the priest was standing. From a tactical standpoint, swapping with a fallen member like Yulia or Makari would have kept more bodies in the fight. But Kuga had other plans and chose Shine as the one person who had to go. Now, the priest is stuck on the outside of the door, completely stunned by the sudden ejection. Sion can only watch as the massive entrance closes, realizing Kuga just locked him out of his own raid. Kuga immediately calls out to Alicia. He tells her he needs one more favor before the real fight begins. Alicia looks back, wondering what he has in mind. Kuga tells her to stay back and protect the priest from any of the boss's stray shots. The vampire finds the request annoying, but she agrees to keep the pathetic healer alive. Back on the livestream, the viewers are losing it. They cannot understand why the vampire isn't helping him fight. Alicia realizes there is a technical problem. She is ineligible to take part in this battle. The chat is stunned. It seems the 4-member party limit applies to allied monsters as well. Kuga does not even look back at the priest he just ejected. To him, Sion is nothing more than a nuisance blocking the path to the real fight. Sion cannot handle being replaced by someone he considered trash. He screams at Kuga's back, desperate to regain some sense of power in a room he was just kicked out of. But the rest of the party is finally done with his games, Sarah's voice dripping with pure disgust as he calls him out. He admits that he could tolerate his arrogance as long as they were winning. Being looked down on was a price the team was willing to pay for a healer. But everything changed the second the situation turned lethal. A coward who tried to ditch his team has no right to speak Kuga's name. To Sarah, a man who runs away is far worse than a jack of all trades. Sion tries to flip the script and deflect the blame. He reminds him that he was the one who ruthlessly kicked Kuga out of the party in the first place. The damage is already done. The livestream chat is blowing up with viewers who saw him try to flee, and Sion can only stutter as his reputation hits rock bottom. The livestream viewers are already turning on the priest. One commenter wonders if someone as famous as Sean would actually abandon his team, but the doubt is spreading fast. The chat quickly shifts from confusion to pure disgust. They are calling him out for being a pathetic coward. Sion can only watch his career crumble while he growls in a useless rage. Then, a viewer drops a massive bombshell. They remember a similar blackout happened right before his old party was wiped out. Sion freezes as his past crimes are dragged into the light. While the priest deals with his ruined reputation, the real battle is just beginning. Kuga stands alone in the center of the nest, facing down the massive Arachne boss. Kuga does not say a word as he grips his blade. He is not just here to survive, he is here to dominate a monster that an entire elite party could not touch. Arachne is completely thrown off by his pressure. She has spent her life hunting humans, but she has never seen one with eyes this cold. The boss screams in frustration as she realizes her web is no longer a trap for him. She cannot understand how a single human is making her feel like the prey. Kuga ignores her screams and moves in for the kill. His blade is already a blur as he prepares to show the world the true power of a fallen hero. He clashes with Arachne. Every strike is calculated to kill. The livestream viewers are stunned. A single comment captures the shock of the entire audience. The spider boss screams as he tears through her high-speed movements. The chat is blowing up. Everyone is asking how one man can handle an S-rank boss alone. Alicia watches him fight. The viewers remember their first encounter and realize he was always this dangerous. Makari and Yulia can only watch in silence. They never imagined the man they abandoned was this powerful. Sarah remains silent. He knew this day would come the moment they kicked him out. This is what it looks like when a jack of all trades stops playing support. Kuga is finally showing his true strength. To understand why Kuga is this strong, we have to look back to about a month ago. That was when Sarah delivered the news that changed everything. He coldly told Kuga that he was officially kicked out of the party. The rest of the girls were stunned. They could not believe their leader was actually letting their most reliable member go. Most people thought Kuga was just a jack of all trades because of his hero job. In this world, that usually means you are mediocre at everything. But Kuga was the exception. He was not just holding the line, he was the line. He had already surpassed the limits of what a normal hero could achieve. Whether it was offense, defense, or healing, he excelled in every single area. He was an elite force packed into one person. Calling him a jack of all trades was the ultimate mistake. Kuga was a master of every craft, and now the world is finally witnessing his true power. Kuga was not just a hero, he was a true all-rounder. His raw strength alone already rivaled that of an S-rank boss. He was someone blessed with natural-born talent from the very beginning. But because Kumazami did not have a healer, Kuga was forced to play both the tank and the support roles at the same time. Behind the scenes, he engaged in quiet and relentless training. It was during this time that his hidden talent finally started to bloom. The party eventually realized they were holding him back. His true potential was being wasted just to keep the rest of them alive. That was the real reason behind his exile. They had to free him from the chains they had placed on him themselves. The girls can only look on in silence as the truth comes out. They knew he was special, but seeing his true power in action is a completely different story. Even now, Makari cannot help but wonder if they made the right choice. She looks down, asking if this was really the only way to handle the situation. She believes that if they had just been honest with him, Kuga might have understood their intentions. But Sarah shuts that idea down immediately. He knows Kuga better than anyone and says he would have refused to leave them every single time. The truth was that Kuga had zero self-worth. He was too stubborn and too loyal to ever walk away on his own, even if it meant sacrificing his own future. The rest of the girls fall into a heavy silence. They realize the weight of the lie they had to maintain just to set him free. Sarah continues, looking back at the desperate plan they set in motion weeks ago. Their goal was never for him to actually defeat the hidden vampire boss. They just wanted him to fight a monster so powerful that he would finally be forced to show the world his true name. This was the real reason for the betrayal. They forced Kuga out of Kumazimi and sent him straight into the mouth of the most dangerous dungeon to find his true potential. The girls didn't just walk away. They stayed nearby, watching his every move through the stream to make sure their plan actually worked. They were ready to jump in and save him at any second if things went south. This was a calculated risk, but they were never going to let him die. Back in the dungeon, Kuga stood face to face with the massive boss. The pressure in the room was heavy, but he did not flinch. He instantly triggered a high-level heal, showing off his insane casting speed. This was not the behavior of a mediocre support class. The boss felt the impact and gritted her teeth. She realized she was finally dealing with a real threat instead of just another victim. Arachne laughed it off and lunged back with her massive claws. She told Kuga he was not the only one with high-speed healing abilities. The stream comments exploded as the viewers watched the battle. People realized Kuga was a monster, but the boss's regeneration was even more insane. On the surface, it looked like a fair fight. But the reality was sinking in. Kuga could not deal damage faster than she could heal herself. Harukin just laughs in his face. She knows she has the upper hand as long as her regeneration stays active. She mocks his efforts, telling him that he is just bleeding out slowly while she remains completely untouched. Every trade is a losing battle for Kuga. He takes hit after hit while his own strikes fail to move her health bar. He realizes standard combat is a dead end. To win this, he has to change the rules of the game entirely. Kuga calls out to Sarah. He needs him to step in and help him pull off a desperate final plan. Sarah is caught off guard. He did not expect him to ask for backup after everything they put him through. He tells him to hold Arachne off for just a moment. He only needs a single opening to activate his hidden trait. Kuga asks him one last time with a cold determination. He is finally ready to do whatever it takes to win. Sarah gives a shaky nod, agreeing to play his part in his plan. He can see the cold resolve in his eyes and knows there is no turning back. With a desperate roar, he lunges at the spider boss to draw its attention. This is the only opening Kuga needs to finish what he started. While the battle rages behind him, Kuga turns his back on the monster. He walks toward the man who once made his life a living hell. Kuga offers a short apology as Shine looks up in total confusion. The priest cannot understand why his former teammate is looking at him like a target. He coldly explains that his new power has a very specific cost. To activate his hidden trait, he needs a sacrifice that fits the criteria. Looking down at the man who discarded him, Kuga tells him it is nothing personal. He simply does not owe the party anything anymore. Terror finally sets in as the arrogant priest realizes the truth. Kuga did not swap places with him to save his life, but to use it as a tool. Alicia watches the scene unfold with a dark smile. She finally understands why he kept her close while he dealt with the ghosts of his past. Seinen can barely get the words out. He stutters the word sacrifice as the dark energy surrounds him. He finally understands that he was never being saved. He was being used. Kuga looks down at his former teammate without a hint of emotion. As the activation cost is paid, the priest lets out a blood-curdling scream. The man who once ruled with an iron fist is now nothing more than a stepping stone. Alicia watches the scene unfold with a dark sense of satisfaction. She does not see a tragedy. She sees a master at work. She tells herself that an apology is not even needed because this was the only way it could end. She gazes at Kuga with a knowing smile. To the rest of the world, he might be a hero, but she finally sees him for what he truly is. He was always a monster to begin with. Seinen can only stutter as the reality of the situation hits him. He keeps repeating the word no while trembling on the floor. The priest is desperate to find a way out. He tries to convince himself that his journey is not over yet. He thinks back to all the work he put in over the years. He struggled for a long time to finally secure a spot on rank duty. Kuga offers a cold apology for what happens next. He does not care about the effort Seinen spent to climb the social ladder. The fallen hero raises his sword with zero hesitation. He tells his former teammate that he simply does not have any time to waste. Seinen lets out a final scream as the activation cost begins to drain his life force. The arrogance is completely gone. Kuga brings the blade down to finish the ritual. The sacrifice is complete and his new power finally begins to surge. The viewers watching the stream are stunned. Even though everyone hated the priest, they cannot believe Kuga actually went through with it. The stream chat exploded in pure disbelief. Everyone was asking why Kuga would go this far as they mourned the fallen priest. Then, a massive pillar of dark energy erupted from the ground. This was the true power of the fallen hero class. Arakshni could only grit her teeth as the pressure became unbearable. The hunter had officially become the prey. Before she could even react, a violent shockwave sent her crashing into the dirt. She struggled to find her footing while the environment around her shattered. Kuga was done playing games. The spider boss cursed her luck as she tried to stabilize her broken body. She never expected a human to possess this much malice. Kuga moved like a shadow, delivering a strike that tore through her defenses in a single motion. Arakshni looked up with wide eyes as the reality of her defeat finally set in. The battle was over before it even started. Makari is frozen in place. She cannot wrap her head around the sheer power Kuga just displayed. Alicia watches the girl's confusion with a dark sense of amusement. She knows exactly why Kuga feels like a different person. She leans in and tells Makari the truth. The Kuga they once knew is dead and buried. Panic starts to set in as Makari demands to know what kind of curse Alicia placed on him. Alicia just laughs it off. She explains that she did not have to do a single thing. The change did not come from a curse. It came from the evolution of his job class. Kuga had officially become a fallen hero. The transformation triggered the moment he took his first life during the fight with the monster slayers. He even managed to keep his old salvation trait, only now it worked in a much more violent way. This confirms his evolution into the fallen hero. While it shares the same name as the hero job, the core mechanics have completely shifted. There is a massive catch to this power. He can no longer use healing or support magic on anyone but himself. In exchange, his raw offensive power has reached insane levels. The most dangerous part of the change is his new passive trait called Soul Salvation. By saving souls, his strength actually multiplies. While the word salvation sounds noble, the reality is much darker. To save a soul in this class means to erase it from existence entirely. It is a simple and violent cycle. The more lives he takes, the more powerful he becomes. Kuga does not hesitate to put this theory into practice. He unleashes a strike of pure dark energy that tears through the air. The target can only scream in terror as the darkness swallows them whole. They realize too late that there is no escape from this new power. Kuga watches the destruction with a cold and steady gaze. He is no longer the man he used to be, and the world is about to find out just how dangerous he has become. The sheer force of his dark energy shatters everything in its path. Arachne can only watch as her world falls apart. She finally breaks under the pressure and screams for him to stop. The predator has officially become the prey. Seeing no way out, the spider boss drops her defenses. She pleads for mercy as Kuga looks down with a cold and steady gaze. He does not care about her tears. He simply orders her to release the prisoners and open the dungeon door. Arachne freezes in pure confusion. This was not the brutal ending she expected from a man who just executed a priest. Kuga makes his terms clear. If she wants to live, she is never allowed to harm anyone who is still alive. If she can swear to those rules, he will spare her life. This is her one and only chance at survival. The once terrifying S-rank boss is reduced to a sniveling mess. She has no choice but to accept his conditions. Makari and Alicia can only watch as Kuga makes his final decision. The once clear line between hero and monster has been blurred forever. Kuga explains his new philosophy to the group. He has officially sided with the monsters and refuses to kill any creature that can be redeemed. With those terms set, the heavy doors of the dungeon finally swing open. The light from the outside world pours in, marking the end of the raid. The live stream audience is losing their minds. Comments flood the screen as they react to the sheer power Kuga displayed during the fight. The viewers are torn on his dark transformation. Some call him a cold-blooded killer, while others argue he was already past the point of no return. The chat continues to spiral into pure chaos. They cannot understand why he would spare a monster but execute human explorers without a second thought. One viewer sums up the situation perfectly. In the eyes of society, Kuga is now a consistent betrayer of humanity. The chat finally notices Alicia stepping into the frame. They realize she is a vampire and wonder if the sunlight will destroy her the moment she leaves the cave. The audience is finally waking up. After seeing the priest's true colors, the chat starts questioning why they ever liked him. Back at the dungeon entrance, the tension is thick. Yulia sprints toward Kuga, calling out his name before the rest of her party can even react. Sarah yells for her to stop. He does not want any more conflict, especially now that the power balance has shifted so drastically. The two parties stand face to face. It is an awkward reunion between former allies. Sarah steps forward, finally finding his voice. He looks him in the eye and offers a sincere thank you for everything. It is the first time he has acknowledged his value to the group. But then his tone shifts. He asks him why he even bothered to show up. Kuga is left speechless, not expecting this kind of cold reaction. The livestream viewers are just as confused as he is. They assumed he was there on a heroic rescue mission to save his old friends from a massacre. Sarah cuts him off completely. He reminds him that he is no longer part of Kumazimi. He tells him to stay away and never do something like this again. The livestream audience is already taking sides. While Sarah tries to push him away, the chat reminds him that Kuga was the only one who bothered to come back after being thrown out like trash. Kuga does not fight back or try to explain himself anymore. He simply accepts the rejection, telling Sarah that he finally understands where they stand. He turns his back on his old life for good. Calling out to Alicia, he tells her it is time to leave this place behind. Alicia is caught off guard by the sudden departure. She quickly falls into step behind him, leaving the stunned members of Kumazimi in the dust. The silence is shattered by a desperate scream. Makari suddenly snaps, yelling at Sarah that he has it all wrong. The entire group freezes in total confusion. Nobody expected the quietest member of the party to have such a violent outburst. Kuga stops in his tracks, looking back at the girl who was once his teammate. Her face is filled with a raw emotion that he cannot quite place. As Makari begins to tremble with rage, the viewers in the chat start to panic. They demand to know the truth behind her cryptic warning. Makari finally hits her limit. She shuts everyone down, including her own leader Sarah. She is done staying quiet while people throw their lives away for nothing. The pressure of keeping the truth hidden has finally broken her. She decides to reveal everything right now. Even the live chat is in shock, watching the party's calmest member lose her mind. The secret is out. The audience learns that the party only kicked Kuga out to protect him from a dangerous path. Kuga can hardly process the news. He asks for some space to wrap his head around this new reality. Some time passes as the weight of the revelation sinks in. The group moves away from the dungeon entrance to find some peace. Later that evening, Kuga tries to make sense of his former life. Everything he believed about being a failure was a lie. Alicia stays close by, sensing that he is struggling with the truth. He finally breaks the silence and calls out to her. Alicia is startled by his sudden voice. She looks up, waiting to hear what he has to say. She approaches him carefully. Seeing the look on his face, she asks him what is on his mind. Kuga drops a bombshell. He has decided to face his past and talk to his old party, Kumazimi, one more time tomorrow. Alicia is caught off guard. She did not expect him to go back after everything they put him through. But Kuga is not going alone. He asks her to stand by his side during the meeting. The request leaves her speechless. This is more than just a favor. It is a sign of his absolute trust. As the moon rises over the city, she gives him her answer. She will follow him anywhere. Later that night, the weight of the decision settles in. Kuga stares out at the horizon, knowing his life is about to change forever. The next day arrives. Kuga and Alicia return to the dungeon to face the people who once abandoned him. They find the party waiting on the 43rd floor, right outside the entrance to the hidden boss room. Kuga greets them first, catching Sarah completely off guard. He clearly did not expect to see his face again so soon. He thanks them for coming out, but Sarah remains distant. He asks him to get straight to the point. Kuga starts to stumble over his words as the pressure of the moment finally builds. Alicia watches him, suddenly realizing that her own heart is pounding against her chest. She questions why she is feeling so anxious about a conversation that should not even matter to her. She tries to convince herself that she would be fine even if Kuga decided to rejoin his old party. Kuga breaks the tension by asking if they are still looking for a healer. The entire group freezes. Nobody expected him to offer help after everything that happened. He admits his candidate is not an elite like Shan. However, he knows exactly who they need. Kuga suddenly turns to his companion. He asks Alicia why she is smiling. The question leaves her completely speechless. Alicia snaps back. She insists she is not smiling, even though she is clearly blushing. Kuga pulls up a profile for everyone to see. Her name is Kushina and she is a rare regenerator. Makari is stunned. A regenerator is one of the most powerful support classes in existence. Kuga confirms the news. Kushana is actually interested in trying out streaming as well. Even though she lacks field experience, she was a top student in school. She is confident that she can get battle-ready in record time. Her actual healing power is more than just solid. Makari takes a moment to think. This recommendation could be their only way forward. She notes that since the new healer's name starts with the same letters as Kuga, they can even keep their original party name. Sarah finally speaks up. He reveals that he never intended to change the party name in the first place. Kuga does not say a word. He realizes that despite the banishment, they never truly let go of his memory. Sarah thanks him and asks for the healer's contact information. Kuga hands it over, finally closing this chapter of his life. Just as things settle down, a notification pops up on the screen. It is a sudden message from the viewers. Kuga notices the shift in energy and asks what is going on. The update is about the S-rank boss Arakan. She was just taken down by an elite party called Evil Slayer. Kuga freezes as he realizes who the viewers are talking about. They are a top-tier S-rank party with a dangerous reputation. The broadcast suddenly shifts to a direct message for the vampire and the hero. The voice mocks them, asking if they have been feeling a bit too confident lately. The broadcast continues with a direct challenge. The speaker mocks Kuga, asking if he is chickening out since he has not taken down an S-rank boss on his own yet. The hunter insists that monsters need to be taught their place. He gestures toward the defeated Arachne, using the creature as a grim example of his power. A twisted, sharp-toothed grin fills the screen. This is not just a regular hunt. It is a sadistic message sent specifically to the hero and his vampire companion. The screen goes dark with a final, chilling promise. They are coming for them next. Kuga feels a cold sweat as he recognizes the group. Evil Slayer is an S-rank party with a reputation for being the most brutal hunters in the business. Sarah looks over, his usual distance replaced by genuine concern. He knows that being in the crosshairs of a group like that makes everything complicated. However, Alicia does not seem worried at all. To the vampire boss, these legendary killers are nothing more than lively prey to be played with. Kuga tries to bring her back to reality. He knows Alicia is strong, but facing an elite S-rank party is a completely different level of danger. Alicia is feeling bold. She announces her plan to turn their enemies into honey. Kuga immediately steps in to correct her. He assumes she means a beehive, and Alicia plays it off like that was her plan all along. Watching them, Sarah cannot help but feel impressed. She sees how much Kuga has changed since he left the party. The leader decides it is time for a serious conversation. She asks the vampire boss for a few minutes alone with her former comrade. Alicia plays it cool. She tells them she does not mind, though her face suggests she might be feeling a bit left out. Kuga and Sarah walk toward the distance to settle their past. This leaves Alicia standing there with the other members of Kumazimi. The situation has taken a sudden turn. Now the vampire is stuck standing with the women who used to be Kuga's closest allies. None of them know what to say. The silence between the three of them is reaching a peak level of awkwardness. Sarah finally breaks the silence to say the words Kuga needed to hear. He officially apologizes for forcing him out of the party. Kuga does not hide his feelings and admits that it really hurt. His blunt honesty catches him off guard for a moment. He knows a simple apology cannot fix everything. Still, he bows his head, showing how much he regrets his decision. Sarah shifts the conversation to the present. He takes a long look at the man standing before him and notices how much he has changed. He mentions how the rest of the party reacted to seeing him on the live stream. Apparently, Yulia was losing her mind and calling him a traitor the entire time. He is no longer just a backup member. He is now a fallen hero partnered with a powerful vampire boss. Sarah admits that this is not the straight-laced path they once imagined for his future. But instead of judging him, he gives him his blessing. He tells Kuga that he actually admires his new role as a dark hero. Sarah even jokes that if he starts taking lives, maybe he will become a fallen sword saint too. He laughs it off quickly, trying to keep the mood light after such a heavy conversation. Kuga watches him in silence, thinking about how long it has been since he saw him smile like that. It is a look that takes them both back to their days in high school before they became adventurers. Alicia eventually steps in and asks Kuga if he finally accepts why Sarah forced him out of the party. Kuga tells her the situation is more complicated than that, which only leaves the vampire boss feeling confused. He looks back at his old life and weighs it against the dark power he now holds as a fallen hero. Kuga decides that if his current path meant nothing, he might have gone back, but he is moving forward. Alicia stands alone as she watches Kuga walk away with his former leader. She is left with a million questions running through her head. Suddenly, the weight of the situation hits her. Being left alone with Kuga's old teammates is more stressful than any boss battle. Her face turns bright red as the awkward silence becomes unbearable. As the conversation ends, they look out over the sprawling city below. Kuga realizes his old life is truly behind him. He chooses to embrace his path as a fallen hero and never look back. Alicia and Kuga have officially begun their next big project. To reach double S rank, Alicia needs to fulfill a specific set of requirements. The final step is to build a massive boss castle. The location was chosen based on a single wish. Alicia wanted a peaceful spot where she could always see the sky. They settle on the lakeshore area of floor 43. A massive crew of kobolds and werewolves arrives to handle the heavy lifting. Suddenly, the piece is shattered by a loud cracking sound from above. A massive dark projectile is falling straight toward the construction site. The duo looks up in disbelief as the scale of the attack becomes clear. Someone is trying to wipe out their progress before it even starts. Alicia rushes over to check on the workers. She calls out to Wano to see if everyone is okay. The Shiba squad leader is visibly shaken. He can barely get his words out as the sudden danger looms over their new home. The massive projectile is a giant chunk of ice aimed directly at the foundation of their future castle. Alicia steps forward, her eyes locked on the target as she prepares to intercept the blow. She unleashes a concentrated blast that slams into the falling mass with surgical precision. The impact is absolute, turning the frozen threat into nothing more than harmless sparkling dust. Back on the live stream, the viewers are going wild trying to figure out what just happened to the construction site. Alicia remains calm as she confirms the situation to her audience, declaring they are officially under attack. Her fans immediately offer to protect her, but a chilling warning appears in the comments from an anonymous source. The culprit finally reveals himself as Yurikawa, the leader of a high-rank party who claims responsibility for the strike. The chat box starts blowing up with users losing their minds. People are shocked, with some even saying they saw this coming. Yurikawa jumps into the comments to confirm he is the one behind the projectile attack. Kuga stares at the screen, realizing things just got way more dangerous for Alicia. Kuga looks toward the vampire boss and drops the name of their new enemy. It is the infamous group known as Evil Slayer. Alicia looks puzzled. The name does not ring a bell for her at all. She stares at him with a blank expression, waiting for an explanation. Kuga reminds her that this is the same S-rank party that declared war on them after the Arachne incident. They are elite hunters who do not play around. Suddenly, a light bulb goes off. Alicia finally remembers who they are talking about. Back in the chat, a fan tries to defend the vampire boss, but Urakawa shuts them down instantly. He demands to know who thinks they are brave enough to stand in his way. Urakawa dismisses the regular viewers in the chat, telling them that average people do not matter in this conflict. He directs his next message at the duo, mockingly calling them a vampire and a useless hero. The S-rank leader makes it clear that this initial attack was only the beginning of his campaign. He claims they started this war by defending monsters, and now it is time for them to pay. Alicia is genuinely confused by the accusation. She wonders when they ever actually went out of their way to pick a fight. She looks over at her partner, hoping he can shed some light on who these people are. Kuga explains that their previous victory against the Monster Slayer party is the reason they are being targeted. The pieces finally click together for the vampire boss. She realizes that defeating a junior team has triggered a war with their elite seniors. Urakawa finishes his declaration of war with a final threat, telling Alicia to tremble in fear until he arrives to humble her. The chat is in a total panic because everyone knows that Evil Slayer is a group of elite hunters who play for keeps. Alicia is completely unfazed by the toxic comments and tells the leader to stop hiding behind a screen and come face her. Her blunt response actually kills the tension, making the audience laugh at the S-rank hunter for being a total keyboard warrior. On the other side of the screen, the legendary leader watches the stream as the comments continue to flood in. Suddenly, a weird message pops up in the chat, with someone aggressively defending the vampire boss and calling her Vampire-san. Urakawa tries to maintain his aura of mystery, preparing to double down on his role as the ultimate villain. But his cold image is ruined instantly when he realizes he just accidentally posted his thirsty fanboy thoughts from his main account. A full week passes after that embarrassing live stream incident. Despite the declaration of war, everything remains quiet at the construction site. Kuga knows this peace is only the calm before a massive storm. He asks Sira to pull up the Evil Slayer stream to see if their enemies have finally made a move. But as the feed loads, the hero sees something that leaves him completely stunned. If you've watched till the end, comment 6-7 to let me know. Subscribe for more videos like this. Leave a like or a comment to help the channel out. Thanks for watching.